The deadbolt clicked at 3:30 in the morning. Tyler Marlowe had learned to wake at that sound. 10-years-old bones pressing against thin skin lying on a mattress that smelled of mildew and concrete cold. The basement of 3847 Maple Ridge Drive never got warm. 55 degrees in winter, 60 in summer. Always dark except for the single bare bulb that hung from the ceiling like a failed sun. The door opened. Light spilled down the wooden stairs. Lisa Mitchell stood at the top silhouette, sharp against the hallway brightness behind her. Up now! Tyler sat up slowly. His back hurt. The concrete floor beneath the mattress offered no forgiveness. Beside him, Maya Carter stirred, 8 years old, her breath coming in that wheezy way that meant her asthma was acting up again. She had no inhaler. Lisa said inhalers were expensive and kids needed to learn to breathe properly. Emma, the youngest at 6, didn't move. She'd learned to sleep through the morning ritual. Tyler pulled on his gray hoodie, 2 sizes too large. The sleeves hung past his hands. He wore it every day because it was all he had that didn't have holes. 1 pair of jeans, 2 t-shirts, the hoodie. That was his wardrobe for 7 months. He climbed the stairs, each step a small negotiation with hunger and exhaustion. At the top, Lisa waited with her arms crossed. She wore a cardigan and khaki pants, pearls at her neck. Church clothes even at 3:30 in the morning. She always dressed like someone might be watching. Kitchen, she said. Dishes from last night. Then vacuum the living room. Bathrooms need scrubbing. Robert wants the garage swept before you leave for school. Tyler nodded. He'd learned not to speak unless spoken to directly. Words were dangerous. Words got you hit. The house above the basement was a different world. Clean, organized, middle-class, comfortable. Family photos on the walls showed Lisa and Robert Mitchell smiling at church picnics, community events, charity dinners. In the photos, they looked like people who cared, people who helped. The photos lied. Tyler worked in silence. His stomach growled. Breakfast would come at 6:30, 1 slice of bread, sometimes butter, sometimes not. He'd learned to eat slowly to make it last, to trick his body into thinking it was more than it was. Maya came upstairs at 4, Emma at 4:30. They worked together, 3 children, moving like ghosts through a house that wasn't theirs, cleaning spaces they weren't allowed to occupy except as servants. At 6:45, Robert Mitchell came downstairs. 42 years old, polo shirt and jeans, looking like any suburban father heading to work. He ate eggs and bacon at the kitchen table while the children stood against the wall, waiting for their single slice of bread. Tyler, Robert said without looking up, you tracking mud yesterday? No, sir. Don't lie to me. Robert's voice stayed calm. That was worse than yelling. I saw prints in the garage. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean. The hand came fast, not hard enough to leave marks on the face. Robert had learned where to hit so teachers wouldn't see. The blow caught Tyler in the ribs. Air rushed out of his lungs. He stayed standing. Falling meant worse. Clean it again after school, Robert said, returning to his eggs. Emma, get your shoes. Maya, fix your hair. We leave in 10 minutes. The drive to Riverside Elementary took 12 minutes. Robert drove a Lexus, 2 years old, black, leather seats. Tyler sat in the back, pressed against the door, gray hoodie pulled tight. Maya beside him. Emma in her booster seat, staring out the window at a world she was part of, but not really living in. Remember, Robert said as they pulled into the school parking lot, you're lucky to have a home. Lucky to have food and clothes and people who care about you. You understand? Yes, sir, Tyler whispered. What happens if you tell lies about us to your teachers? Tyler knew the answer. He'd been taught. We get separated. They send us somewhere worse. They split up Maya and Emma. That's right, Robert smiled in the rearview mirror. So you're going to be good today, aren't you? Yes, sir. The car doors opened. 3 children climbed out. Tyler pulled his backpack over his shoulders. Inside, 1 notebook, 2 pencils, no lunch. He never had lunch. Lisa said the school lunch program was charity for lazy parents, and the Mitchell family didn't take charity. Tyler watched Robert drive away. Then he turned toward the school building. And that's when he saw her. Adelaide Whitmore stood at the entrance to Riverside Elementary, coffee cup in hand, watching students arrive. 35 years old, brown hair, pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing jeans and a cardigan because fourth grade teachers didn't need fancy clothes. They needed pockets for tissues and extra pencils and the kind of compassion that can't be bought. She noticed Tyler immediately, not because he was different, because he was the same gray hoodie he'd worn yesterday, and the day before, and the day before that. Addie had been teaching for 12 years, long enough to know the difference between a favorite sweatshirt and the only sweatshirt. She watched Tyler walk across the parking lot. Thin, too thin for a 10-year-old boy who should be hitting growth spurts and complaining about being hungry all the time. He moved carefully like someone who'd learned that sudden movements attracted attention. Maya and Emma peeled off toward their own classrooms. Tyler continued alone. When he reached the entrance, Addie smiled. "Morning, Tyler." He flinched, just slightly. Just enough that someone who wasn't watching wouldn't see. But Addie was watching. "Morning, Ms. Whitmore," he said. Voice quiet, eyes down. "How are you today?" "Fine, ma'am. Fine." The universal word children use when they couldn't tell the truth. Addie let him pass. She didn't push, not yet. But when she got to her classroom, room 214 on the second floor, she pulled out a spiral notebook she kept in her desk drawer. A notebook she'd started keeping 3 years ago after a student had shown up with bruises, and Addie hadn't documented anything, and the case had fallen apart because she couldn't prove a pattern. She'd learned. She wrote down everything now. October 15th, 2024, day 1, Tyler Marlowe, gray hoodie oversized. Same clothes as yesterday and day before, noticeably underweight, flinches when addressed directly, avoided eye contact. Arrived at school, 7:10 a.m. walk from parking lot alone, while two younger girls, possibly foster siblings, went to different entrances. She paused, pen hovering over paper. Something's wrong, I can feel it. Then she closed the notebook and went to teach her class. The morning passed in the rhythm all elementary school mornings pass. Spelling tests, math worksheets, a reading group where Tyler sat in the back and stared at the book without turning pages. Addie called on him twice. Both times he startled like someone waking from a dream. "Tyler, can you read the next paragraph?" He blinked, found the place, read in a monotone voice that suggested he had no idea what the words meant. When he finished, he looked down again, retreating into whatever space he went to when the world got too loud. At 11:30, the class went to lunch. Tyler didn't move. Addie watched from her desk as 23 children filed out chattering about chicken nuggets and chocolate milk and who was trading what for whose cookies. Tyler stayed in his seat, head down, hands in the pockets of that gray hoodie. When the room emptied, Addie approached his desk. "Tyler, it's lunchtime." "I'm not hungry, Ms. Whitmore." "You brought lunch from home?" A pause. "I forgot it." Addie knew that pause. The half-second delay while a child decided whether to lie or tell a truth that might cost them something. "I've got an extra sandwich in my lunch," she said. "Turkey and cheese. You want it?" "No, thank you, ma'am." "Tyler, when's the last time you ate?" His shoulders tensed. "Breakfast. I had breakfast." "What did you have?" Another pause. "Toast." Addie knelt beside his desk so she could see his face. He wouldn't look at her. His hands, she noticed, were thin, knuckles prominent, fingernails bitten to the quick. "Sweetheart, I'm going to ask you something and I need you to be honest with me. Are you getting enough to eat at home?" Tyler's eyes filled with tears. He blinked them back. "I'm fine, Ms. Whitmore. I just forgot my lunch. It happens." She wanted to push, wanted to grab his thin shoulders and demand the truth. But 12 years of teaching had taught her that pushing scared kids made them retreat further. So instead, she stood up, went to her desk and pulled out half her sandwich. She set it on Tyler's desk without asking permission. "Eat," she said. "I'm not hungry anyway." He stared at the sandwich like it might disappear if he touched it. Then slowly he picked it up, ate one bite, then another, then devoured it in 6 bites, barely chewing, his body desperate for calories it hadn't received in too long. When he finished, he wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "Thank you," he whispered. "You're welcome." That afternoon, Addie wrote in her notebook again. Tyler refused lunch. No lunch packed. Claimed he forgot it. When offered food, ate like someone starving. Need to monitor. Need to watch. At 3:15, the bell rang. Students poured out of classrooms like water from a broken dam. Addie stood at her window watching the parking lot. She saw the black Lexus pull up. saw Robert Mitchell behind the wheel looking like any other parent picking up kids. Tyler walked to the car with his shoulders hunched. Maya and Emma appeared from other doors. All three climbed in. The Lexus drove away. Addie stood at the window for a long time after they left. Then she went home. Home was a two-bedroom apartment on the east side of Columbus. Second floor of a converted house with a landlord who didn't mind motorcycles parked in the driveway and neighbors who'd learned to ignore the rumble of engines coming and going at odd hours. Addie unlocked the door at 4:30. Inside, her brother Garrett sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, wearing a Hells Angels vest over a black t-shirt. At 40 years old, Garrett Whitmore looked exactly like what he was, a man who'd survived things that should have killed him and decided to spend the rest of his life making sure nobody else had to survive the same. They called him Ghost, had for 15 years. Ever since he'd walked out of a building in Fallujah that collapsed 30 seconds later, and his sergeant had sworn he'd seen Garrett's body in the rubble before the dust cleared, and there he was standing outside covered in concrete powder like a man resurrected. "Hey," Addie said, dropping her bag on the counter. Ghost looked up. He had the kind of eyes that saw everything. Marine eyes, Hell's Angels eyes, eyes that had watched friends die and children suffer and the world fail people who deserve better. He saw his sister's face and closed the laptop. "What's wrong?" Addie poured herself coffee from the pot Ghost always kept hot. She sat across from him. For a moment, she didn't speak, just wrapped her hands around the mug and stared into it like the answer might be floating in there somewhere. "I've got a student," she said finally. 10 years old, foster kid, something's wrong." Ghost said nothing, waited. He was good at waiting. He's wearing the same clothes every day. I mean the exact same. Gray hoodie, same jeans. He's thin Garrett, like scary thin. And today at lunch he didn't have any food, and when I offered him half my sandwich, he ate it like he hadn't seen a meal in days. "You talked to the foster parents?" "No, not yet. I don't even know if what I'm seeing is real or if I'm projecting." Ghost's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes went hard. "You're not projecting. What else?" He flinches when I speak to him, avoids eye contact, keeps his head down. During class, he falls asleep sometimes, just dozes off in the middle of math. "You document it. Started a notebook today, date time observations." "Good." Ghost leaned back in his chair. "Keep documenting, every day, everything you see. If this is what I think it is, you're going to need a paper trail." Addie looked at her brother, at the scars on his knuckles from fights he'd never talked about, at the tattoos on his forearms that told stories and symbols she'd learned to read over the years, at the Hells Angels patch on his vest that most people saw and decided he was dangerous. They weren't wrong, but they also weren't right. "What do you think it is?" she asked. Ghost was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different. Younger, the voice of a 12-year-old boy who'd learned what it meant to be invisible. "I think," he said slowly, "that you're watching a kid disappear in plain sight, and I think you might be the only person who's noticed." Addie's throat tightened. "Tell me." Ghost had never talked about his foster care years. Not in detail, not the way that mattered. But now sitting across from his sister in their shared kitchen, he did. "I was 11 when Mom and Dad died," he said. "Car accident. Black ice. January 1996. You were 6. Too young to remember most of it." Addie remembered pieces. A social worker with kind eyes. A house that smelled like other people's cooking. Her brother's hand holding hers too tight. "They split us up," Ghost continued. "Put you with the Hendersons. Nice family. Older couple. They were good to you, right?" "Yeah, they were good." "I went to Walter Crenshaw, 48 years old, single, lived in a house on the south side, passed all the background checks. Good references. Church member." Ghost's jaw tightened. "For 4 years, that man made me wish I'd died in the same accident as Mom and Dad." Addie had known in the abstract way siblings know things without being told. But she'd never heard the details. "He hit you, cut him, among other things." Ghost's voice stayed level, detached, the way Marines talked about combat. "He kept me in the shed when I misbehaved. No heat, no light, just concrete and dark and the sound of my own breathing. fed me enough to keep me alive but not enough to grow properly. I was 5'4" when I left at 16. Didn't hit 6 feet until I was 19 and the Marines fed me actual food. Garrett. I wore the same clothes for weeks at a time. He'd buy me one outfit at Goodwill, tell me to make it last. Teachers noticed. I could see them noticing. But nobody ever did anything. Nobody counted the days. Nobody wrote it down. Nobody called anyone. He looked at his sister with eyes that had seen too much. When I was 16, I ran away. Forged documents. Lied about my age. Joined the Marines at 17. Spent 8 years learning how to fight and how to survive and how to be part of something bigger than myself. Then I found the angels, and we made a promise. What promise? No child suffers on our watch. Not if we can help it. Not if we show up. He leaned forward. Addie, if that kid is being abused, if those foster parents are hurting him, you documenting it might be the only thing that saves his life. Keep counting, every day, everything. And if it gets bad, I'll call you. No, Ghost's voice went hard. If it gets bad, you call me and you call Chaplain. Because this isn't something I handle alone. This is code fallen youth. Code what? Emergency protocol. When a kid's in danger and the system's failing, we mobilize, all of us, every brother within riding distance. He pulled out his phone, showed her a contact, Ezekiel Dalton. Chaplain's the president of our chapter, former Army chaplain. Lost his daughter to the foster system 27 years ago. She died because nobody showed up. He built Code Fallen Youth to make sure it never happens again. Addie stared at the phone number. How many times have you activated it? 6 in the past 5 years. Pulled 4 kids out of hell. 2 we were too late for, but we made sure the people who hurt them went to prison. Ghost's expression softened slightly. Addie, I'm not saying jump to conclusions. I'm saying trust your gut. You teach 4th grade because you care about kids. If your gut says something's wrong, something's probably wrong. That night, Addie lay in bed staring at the ceiling. In her mind, she saw Tyler's face. The way he'd eaten that sandwich. The way his shoulders hunched like he was trying to disappear. The way he'd whispered thank you, like those 2 words might be the last kindness he'd receive. She thought about her brother, about 4 years in a shed, about a 12-year-old boy who'd counted days and nobody had counted with him. She picked up her phone, set an alarm for tomorrow, wrote a note to herself, Day 2, keep counting. Then she closed her eyes and tried to sleep. October 16th, Day 2, Tyler wore the same gray hoodie. Addie marked it in her notebook. Same clothes as Day 1. Arrived school 7:12 a.m., walked alone from parking lot. Math class. Tyler fell asleep at his desk. Addie woke him gently. He jerked awake, eyes wide with panic before he remembered where he was. Lunch. No food again. Addie offered her apple. Tyler took it, ate it core and all. After school, Addie watched the black Lexus pick him up. Robert Mitchell at the wheel, looking like a responsible parent. Looking like someone who cared. October 17th, Day 3. Same hoodie, same jeans, same thin frame that seemed to be getting thinner. Addie measured him with her eyes. Estimated his weight at maybe 60 pounds. A 10-year-old boy should weigh closer to 70, 75. During reading group, Tyler's stomach growled loud enough that other students turned to look. His face flushed red. He pulled the hoodie tighter, trying to muffle the sound of his own hunger. Addie gave him her granola bar. He ate it in the bathroom so the other kids wouldn't see. October 21st, Day 7. Tyler had a bruise on his left wrist, purple and fresh, the size and shape of adult fingers. How'd you get that, sweetheart? Addie asked during recess when the other kids were outside. I fell. Fell how? On the stairs. I'm clumsy. The lie sat between them like a living thing. Tyler knew she didn't believe him. Addie knew he knew, but what could she do? She had no proof, just a bruise and a story and the sick feeling in her gut that told her this child was drowning and she was watching from shore. She wrote it in her notebook. Bruise on left wrist, approximately 2 inches long, finger width. Purple coloring suggests fresh injury, likely within 24-48 hours. Tyler claims he fell on stairs. Children who fall on stairs don't get finger-shaped bruises. October 28th. Day 14. Tyler fell asleep during English, not dozed, full asleep. Head on desk, breathing deep, the kind of sleep that comes from exhaustion so profound the body simply shuts down. Addie let him sleep. The lesson could wait. Rest couldn't. When he woke 20 minutes later, he looked around in panic. "It's okay," Addie said quietly. "You needed rest." "It's fine." "I'm sorry, Ms. Whitmore. I didn't mean—" "Tyler, when's the last time you got a full night's sleep?" He stared at his desk. "I sleep fine." "Do you—" No answer. In the hallway during lunch, Addie ran into the school nurse, Linda Morrison. 61 years old, gray-haired, kind-faced, with 35 years of seeing things most people missed. "Linda, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "If you had a student who was consistently exhausted, losing weight, had unexplained bruises, what would you think?" Linda's expression shifted. Nurse to investigator. "I'd think someone needs to file a report with CPS." "Is this about a student in your class?" "Maybe. I don't know. I'm still watching." "How long have you been watching?" 2 weeks. Linda put a hand on Addie's shoulder. 2 weeks is long enough to see a pattern. If your gut says something's wrong, Adelaide, you file. You don't wait for perfect evidence. You file and let the investigators investigate. That afternoon, Addie called Child Protective Services. She gave them Tyler's name. His foster parents' names, Lisa and Robert Mitchell. The address, 3847 Maple Ridge Drive. She described what she'd seen. The weight loss, the same clothes, the bruises, the exhaustion, the hunger. The woman on the phone took notes, said she'd assign a caseworker, said someone would investigate. "How long?" Addie asked. "Usually within 30 days. 30 days. We have a backlog, ma'am, but we take every report seriously. Someone will look into it." Addie hung up feeling hollow. 30 days. A month. 4 weeks of a child suffering while bureaucracy moved at its own pace. She went home and told Ghost. "Good," he said. "You did the right thing. Now keep documenting. Because I guarantee you those foster parents are good at performing. CPS shows up, they'll have the house perfect, and the kid coach to say all the right things. So what do? We wait, we watch, and if CPS closes the case without helping him, then we step in." November 14th, day 30. Addie learned that CPS had visited the Mitchell home on November 12th. Caseworker Rebecca Garrison had conducted a routine home inspection. She'd found adequate conditions. Clean house, well-maintained rooms, children appeared healthy and well cared for. Foster parents cooperative and concerned. Case closed. Addie stood in Principal Richard Anderson's office, holding the notification letter, feeling something dark and angry rise in her chest. "They closed it," she said. "They went to that house and saw nothing wrong." Principal Anderson, 53 years old, thinning hair, 26 years in education, looked at her with the tired eyes of someone who had seen the system fail children too many times to count. "Ms. Whitmore, sometimes families are just struggling. Sometimes foster care is hard, and kids act out, and we misinterpret. He's wearing the same clothes he's worn for 30 days straight. Richard, the exact same. I've photographed him. I've documented it. He weighs maybe 60 pounds. He falls asleep in class from exhaustion. And CPS went to that house and saw nothing. Perhaps the caseworker saw things you didn't. Perhaps the Mitchells are very good at hiding what they do." Addie's voice shook. "And perhaps a 10-year-old boy is going to die while we all stand around wondering if we're overreacting." Anderson sighed. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to care. I want you to look at Tyler Marlowe and see what I see." "And what do you see?" "A child disappearing in plain sight." She walked out of his office before he could respond. That night, Ghost said 3 words. "Keep counting, Addie." So she did. November 29th, day 35. Tyler weighed himself during PE class. Addie saw the number on the scale, 58 pounds, 15 pounds underweight. For a 10-year-old boy who should be growing, who should be hitting growth spurts, who should be complaining about being hungry because that's what 10-year-old boys do. 58 pounds. Addie wrote it down, added it to the notebook that was filling with days and details and the slow-motion disaster of watching a child starve. December 3rd, day 38. Tyler collapsed during recess, just fell. One moment standing, the next on the ground, legs giving out like someone had cut the strings holding him up. Nurse Morrison checked him. Low blood sugar, dehydration, exhaustion. When's the last time you ate? Linda asked. Breakfast, Tyler whispered. What did you have for breakfast? Toast. Linda looked at Addie. They both knew. One slice of bread wasn't breakfast. It was survival rations. December 10th, day 43. Addie found Tyler behind the cafeteria eating from the trash. He didn't see her at first. Too focused on the half-eaten sandwich he'd pulled from the bin, brushing off the coffee grounds, eating it like it was a feast. When he looked up and saw her, shame flooded his face. Tears filled his eyes. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so hungry, Ms. Whitmore. I'm just so hungry. Addie's heart broke clean in half. She knelt in the dirt beside him, not caring about her jeans, not caring about anything except the child in front of her who was starving and scared and trying to survive on garbage. Tyler, this isn't your fault. You understand me. This isn't your fault. Robert says I'm ungrateful. Says they give me plenty and I'm just greedy. Says foster kids need to learn discipline. What happens when you ask for more food? Tyler looked away. He gets mad. Mad how? Silence. Tyler, does Robert hit you? The boy's silence was answer enough. Addie pulled out her phone, took a photo of him sitting there with the half-eaten sandwich. Evidence, documentation. The paper trail Ghost said she'd need. Come with me, she said. We're going to my classroom. I've got food there, real food, and you're going to eat it. In room 214, Addie gave Tyler everything in her lunchbox. A sandwich, an apple, string cheese, crackers, a juice box. She watched him eat it all, barely chewing his body, desperate for calories. When he finished, he looked at her with exhausted eyes. Please don't tell them I ate your food, he said. Robert checks my stomach sometimes. He says he can tell if I've been eating more than I'm supposed to. If he knows, he'll what, sweetheart? Tyler pulled up his sleeve. The bruises were everywhere. Up and down his forearm, purple ones, yellow ones, green ones, brown ones, bruises at different stages of healing, which meant this wasn't one incident. This was a pattern. This was systematic. And every single bruise was the size and shape of adult fingers. Addie took photos. Her hands shook. Rage and grief and horror all mixed together in her chest until she could barely breathe. Tyler, I need you to listen to me very carefully. You're not going back to that house tonight. Do you understand? I have to. They'll know I told. I'm calling my brother here. He's going to help. Ms. Whitmore, you don't understand. If you call, it'll be worse. It's always worse when people try to help. Not this time. Addie pulled out her phone. This time we're doing it differently. December 13th, day 45. Tyler showed up to school with a fresh bruise on his cheekbone, purple and swollen. He told Addie he fell on the playground. There was no playground equipment that could make a bruise shaped like a fist. December 14th, day 46, Tyler wrote in his class journal. The prompt was simple. What do you wish for? Most students wrote about toys or trips or puppies. Tyler wrote one sentence. I wish someone would count my days like I count Emma's breaths when she's scared at night. Addie read it 3 times. Then she closed the journal, put it in her bag, and made a decision. Tomorrow, day 47. If Tyler showed up in that same gray hoodie, if he looked hungry or hurt or scared, she would make the call. Not to CPS. They'd already failed. She would call Ghost. And Ghost would call Chaplain Dalton. And Code Fallen Youth would activate. Because a 10-year-old boy had spent 46 days disappearing, and Addie was done watching it happen. May 15th, 2025. Day 47. Tyler wore the gray hoodie. Of course he did. It was all he had. Addie stood at the entrance to Riverside Elementary with her coffee, watching the black Lexus pull into the parking lot at 7:10 a.m. exactly on time, exactly like every other morning. Robert Mitchell dropped off 3 children. Maya, Emma, Tyler. All 3 climbed out. All 3 walked toward the school with their heads down. But today something was different. Tyler looked worse. Not just thin, skeletal. His face had a hollow quality, like someone had carved away everything unnecessary and left only bone and skin and eyes too old for a 10-year-old face. When he reached the entrance, Addie smiled at him the same way she'd smiled for 46 days. Morning, Tyler. Morning, Ms. Whitmore. How are you today? Tyler looked at her. Really looked. For the first time in 47 days, he met her eyes. And what Addie saw there made her decision. Fine, he whispered. Good, I'll see you in class. Tyler nodded and walked inside. Addie waited until he was gone. Then she pulled out her phone and sent a text message. Ghost, I need you now. Fourth grader with fingerprint bruises. Malnourished at 7 months of abuse. Today's the day. 3 dots appeared. Then I'm 20 minutes out. Calling chaplain. Code fallen youth. Don't let him go. Addie put her phone away, finished her coffee, walked to her classroom with the weight of 47 days pressing on her shoulders. She would keep Tyler safe, whatever it took, however long it took. She'd been counting for 47 days. Now it was time to act. At 3:15, the bell rang. Students flooded into the hallways. Addie stood at her classroom door watching Tyler pack his bag. Slow, deliberate, like he was walking toward execution instead of just home. When the room emptied and Tyler stood to leave, Addie stepped in front of the door. Tyler, can you stay for a minute? I want to talk to you about your journal entry. Fear flashed across his face. I didn't mean anything by it, Miss Whitmore. I was just... You're not in trouble, I promise. I just want to talk. Tyler sat back down. Addie pulled a chair close, positioned herself between him and the door, not trapping him, protecting him. Tyler, I need to ask you something important, and I need you to be honest with me. He stared at his hands. Okay. Are you safe at home? Long pause. So long, Addie thought he might not answer. Then quietly, no, ma'am. Are Maya and Emma safe? No, we're all scared. Addie's heart hammered in her chest. Sweetheart, can you show me your arms? The bruises you showed me last week, are there more? Tyler's eyes filled with tears. He looked toward the door, checking if anyone was there. Then slowly, carefully, he pulled up both sleeves. The bruises had multiplied. New ones layered over old. Emom. Purple, yellow, green, brown. A timeline of violence written on a 10-year-old's skin. Addie took photos, documented, counted. 12 distinct bruises on his left arm. 8 on his right, all the size and shape of adult fingers gripping too hard. Tyler, I'm going to help you. Do you believe me? People always say they'll help, then nothing changes. This time will be different. How duh? Because I'm not calling CPS. I'm calling someone who actually shows up. Tyler looked at her with eyes that had stopped hoping a long time ago. Who, my brother, and about 100 of his friends. What can they do? They can make sure you never go back to that house. They can make sure Lisa and Robert can't hurt you anymore. They can make sure people finally believe you. Tyler's voice broke. Will they really believe me? Everyone believes Lisa and Robert. Even the caseworker believed them. Tyler, when was the last time you felt safe? He thought about it. I don't remember. Then let me help you remember what safe feels like. 3:52 p.m. Tyler whispered 7 words that would change everything. Please don't make me go back there. Addie knelt beside his desk eye level so he could see her face when she made the promise. You won't. I swear to you, Tyler, you're not going back. She pulled out her phone, dialed Ghost. He answered on the first ring. I'm at the school, Addie said. I've got a 10-year-old with fingerprint bruises on both arms. He's malnourished, weighs 58 pounds. He's been locked in a basement for 7 months with 2 other foster kids. Foster parents are collecting $9,200 a month and spending maybe $400 on all 3 children. CPS already failed him 3 weeks ago. She heard Ghost's sharp intake of breath. Jesus, where's the kid now? In my classroom, I'm not letting him go. Good, don't. I'm 20 minutes out. Already called chaplain. Code Fallen Youth is active. How many are coming? Everyone. The line went dead. Addie put her phone away and turned to Tyler, who sat at his desk pulling his sleeves down over his hands, a habit she'd documented 34 times in 2 months. Tyler, my brother is coming. He's going to help. So are a lot of his friends. Friends, Tyler's voice was small, uncertain. Bikers, men who ride motorcycles. And I know that might sound scary, but I promise you these men protect children, especially children the system has failed. Will they believe me? Everyone else believes Lisa and Robert. Addie pulled a chair close and sat at his level. Tyler, I've been counting. For 47 days, I've been writing down everything I see, the same hoodie, the weight loss, the bruises, the hunger. I have documentation. I have photos. I have evidence. And when my brother's friends get here, We're going to make it impossible for anyone to look away. What if it doesn't work? What if they send me back behind bone? Then 100 bikers will be standing between you and that house. And Lisa and Robert will have to go through all of them to get to you. For the first time in 47 days, something like hope flickered in Tyler's eyes. Outside in the distance, a sound began. Low at first, distant, like thunder rolling in from the horizon. Tyler's head lifted. "What's that?" Addie smiled. "That's hope on two wheels." The rumble grew, not one motorcycle, not five, dozens. The sound of engines synchronized, powerful, deliberate. It shook the windows of room 214. Tyler walked to the window and looked down at the parking lot. His jaw dropped. Motorcycles poured into Riverside Elementary like a metal river. Chrome gleaming in the afternoon sun. Leather-clad riders dismounting in coordinated precision. 10 bikes became 20. 20 became 40. 40 became 60. They kept coming. "How many?" Tyler whispered. "I don't know yet, but Ghost said everyone." Tyler pressed his hands against the glass, watching the parking lot fill with Hell's Angels from Columbus, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Dayton. Men dropping everything because a code had gone out, because a child needed help, because 47 days was long enough. "They're here for me," Tyler's voice cracked. "All of them, every single one." The classroom door opened. Ghost walked in first. 6'1", built like someone who'd spent 20 years staying mission-ready even after leaving the Marines. His leather vest bore patches, Hell's Angels rocker, Columbus chapter, military service ribbon. Gray threaded through his dark beard. His eyes, the same warm brown as his sister's, landed on Tyler with immediate understanding. Behind him stood a man who made Ghost look young. Ezekiel Dalton was 58 years old, gray-bearded, weathered face marked by 3 decades of grief that never quite faded. He wore the president patch. His blue eyes were sharp, assessing gentle. He moved with the quiet authority of someone who didn't need to prove anything because everyone already knew. "Ms. Whitmore," Chaplain's voice was quiet but commanded the room. "Your brother tells me we've got 3 kids locked in a basement, 2 foster parents collecting $9,000 a month. System failed to protect them 3 separate times." "That's correct, Mr. Dalton. Call me Chaplain. Everyone does." He turned to Tyler, and something in his expression softened. "Son, I'm going to ask you some questions. Hard questions. But you don't have to be scared of me. I know I look like something out of a nightmare, but my wife always said God made me this big so kids would know they're safe when I show up." Tyler stared up at him. This massive man with the gray beard and the leather vest and the patches that said Hell's Angels in letters you could read from across the parking lot. "You believe that?" Chaplain asked gently. Tyler nodded slowly. Chaplain pulled a chair over, sat down carefully so he wouldn't startle the boy. Even sitting, he was imposing. But his voice stayed soft. "How old are you, Tyler?" 10. "4th grade." Tyler nodded. "You know what I was doing when I was 10? Chaplain leaned back slightly. "I was memorizing Bible verses at military chapel while my dad served in Germany. Wanted to be a chaplain like him when I grew up. And I did that. Served 8 years as Army chaplain before I became this." He gestured at his vest. He paused, let that sink in. "Point is, even at 10, I knew what right and wrong looked like. So I'm betting you do too. And I'm betting you've been trying to do the right thing. Protect your foster sisters, keep your head down, survive." That about accurate. Tears streamed down Tyler's face. He nodded. "You did everything right, son. You stayed alive. You kept those girls as safe as you could. And when your teacher noticed when she cared enough to count 47 days, you trusted her enough to tell the truth. That took more courage than most grown men have." Chaplain's voice grew firmer. "Now it's our turn. You've been strong long enough. We're taking it from here." The door opened again. More men filed in. Each one introduced themselves. Silas Brennan, they called him Hawk. 52 years old, wearing wire-rimmed glasses that made him look more like an accountant than a biker. Which made sense because he'd been a forensic investigator for the IRS for 22 years before joining the Angels. Declan O'Brien, medic, 55, combat medic from the Gulf War. Carried a medical kit everywhere he'd been for 34 years. Wyatt Morrison, Doc, 49, former high school teacher. Still volunteered with illiteracy programs. Archer Calloway, Scout, 44, media strategist, former journalist. Phone already out documenting everything. They stood in room 214, six bikers surrounding a 10-year-old boy, and every single one of them looked at Tyler like he mattered. Nurse Linda Morrison arrived. She'd heard the motorcycles. Come to investigate. When she saw the scene, she understood immediately. I'll do the medical documentation, she said. She photographed Tyler's arms from multiple angles, measured the bruises with a ruler, noted the width and spacing of the fingerprint marks, wrote in her documentation log with clinical precision, 4 distinct bruises on left forearm, purple coloring, indicating recent injury estimated 2 to 4 days old. 3 bruises on right forearm showing yellow and green coloring, estimated 7 to 14 days old. Pattern consistent with being grabbed forcefully by adult hand. Multiple injuries at various healing stages indicate repeated incidents over time. When she finished, she looked at Chaplin. CPS already failed this child once. Whatever you're planning, make sure he doesn't go back. Ma'am, Chaplin said quietly, I promise you those foster parents will never touch these children again. Outside, the rumble had stopped. The parking lot was full. Principal Anderson appeared in the doorway, face pale. Ms. Whitmore, there are over 100 motorcycles outside my school. Yes, Mr. Anderson, those are my brother's friends. They're here to ensure Tyler's safety while we wait for CPS. This is highly irregular. So is a child being starved and beaten while everyone looks the other way. Addie's voice was steel. I filed a mandatory report. I have medical documentation. I have witness testimony. And I have 103 men who refuse to let this child go back to his abusers while we wait for a system that's already failed him 3 times. Chaplin stepped forward, extended his hand. Principal Anderson, Victor Dalton, I apologize for the dramatic presence. We're not here to cause problems. We're here to support Ms. Whitmore in following the law. She's a mandatory reporter who discovered evidence of child abuse. We're ensuring the victim remains safe during the investigation. Anderson reluctantly shook his hand. The optics, Ghost interrupted, are that your school finally protected a kid who's been failing in plain sight for 7 months. Optics are that a teacher cared enough to count 47 days. Optics are that when the system moved too slow, a community showed up fast. Scout appeared with his phone. Principal Anderson, local news is asking questions. Here's what I'm recommending. You issue a statement that Riverside Elementary staff followed mandatory reporting protocols, that the student is safe, that community members are cooperating with authorities. You can be the principal who protected a child, or the one who worried about parking lot appearances while a 10-year-old went back to his abusers. Your choice. Anderson looked between Scout, Chaplin, Ghost, and Addie, then at Tyler still standing by the window, thin and exhausted and hopeful for the first time in months. Fine, the child stays here until proper authorities arrive, but I want a written statement from your club. Chaplin pulled out his phone, typed something, showed Anderson, legal cooperation statement, peaceful witnesses supporting mandatory reporter, not interfering, not threatening, just present. Anderson read it, nodded stiffly, left. Addie exhaled. Thank you. He came around, Chaplin said. Most people do when they realize we're not the villains. At 6:47 p.m., a white sedan pulled into the parking lot. Rebecca Garrison climbed out, 38 years old, exhausted, carrying a tablet and file folder, expecting to find a hysterical teacher and an exaggerating child. What she found instead was 103 motorcycles, a teacher with 47 days of documentation, a school nurse with medical evidence, and a Hells Angels president who greeted her with calm professionalism. Ms. Garrison, Chaplin extended his hand. Ezekiel Dalton, I'm here as a community witness supporting Miss Whitmore's mandatory report. Rebecca looked around the room, at the bikers, at the documentation spread across Addie's desk, at Tyler sitting in the corner eating his 3rd granola bar under Doc's supervision. This is unusual, she said carefully. So is a child being failed by the system 3 times in 7 months. Addie handed her the medical report. Nurse Morrison documented his injuries. Fingerprint pattern, bruising at multiple healing stages, malnutrition, 15 pounds underweight. And before you ask, yes, this is the same house you investigated 3 weeks ago. Rebecca's face tightened. She opened her tablet, pulled up a file. The Mitchell residence. Investigator visited November 12th. Found adequate conditions. Case closed. Adequate conditions. Ghost's voice was flat. Did your investigator interview the children privately, or were the foster parents present? Rebecca hesitated. Report indicates foster parents were present during interviews. Standard protocol. Standard protocol that allows abusers to intimidate victims into silence. Chaplain's voice remained calm but firm. Mr. Garrison, I'm not here to make your job harder. I'm here to make sure you have everything you need to do it right. He gestured to the evidence. Medical documentation. Financial records Hawk had already started pulling. Witness testimony from Addie. Tyler's journal entry. 47 days of photographs. We have everything you need to remove 3 children tonight. Emergency removal. Right now. Rebecca looked overwhelmed. I can't just remove children without... Hawk stepped forward with his laptop. Ma'am, I'm Silas Brennan, former IRS forensic investigator. With your permission, I'd like to show you financial evidence we've compiled. You investigated their finances. Public records, payment history from state databases, credit card purchases that are part of court records. Hawk turned his screen toward her. Lisa and Robert Mitchell received $9,250 monthly for 3 foster children. Over 7 months, that's $64,750. Their documented spending on children, about $2,800 total. That's a profit margin of $61,950. Rebecca stared at the numbers. That's fraud. That's systematic exploitation of vulnerable children for profit, Hawk said quietly. And I found their pattern. They've had foster placements before. I'm still digging, but preliminary evidence suggests they've been doing this for years. Rebecca looked at Tyler, at his thin frame, his exhausted eyes, the way he flinched when she moved too quickly. She'd seen enough abused kids to recognize one. Yes, she said quietly, I can file for emergency custody, but I need to interview all 3 children separately, and I need to inspect the home. Then let's go. Chaplain pulled out his phone. Brothers are already stationed at the Mitchell house. Peaceful presence. No interference, but if those foster parents try to run or destroy evidence, we'll know. Rebecca's eyes widened. You have people at their house right now. 15 brothers rotating shifts in the street. Public property. Legal. Visible. Ghost crossed his arms. We're not vigilantes, Ms. Garrison. We're witnesses. We're making sure nobody disappears before you do your job. Rebecca looked at the bikers, at the evidence, at 47 days of a teacher who refused to stop counting. She made a decision. Let's go get those kids. Outside, as Rebecca's sedan prepared to leave, Addie stood at the window with Tyler. 103 motorcycles filled the parking lot. Silent. Waiting. Witness to the moment when counting became action. Tyler looked up at Addie. You really counted, he whispered, for 47 days. Every single one. Why? Addie knelt down so she could look him in the eyes. Because you matter, Tyler. Every child matters. And someone needed to see you. Tears rolled down his face. Thank you for counting. Thank you for surviving long enough for me to notice. The motorcycles started their engines, one by one, then together, a symphony of thunder promising that 47 days of silence were over, and the counting had just begun. The convoy rolled out at 7:30 p.m. Rebecca Garrison's white sedan led the way, followed by 2 police cruisers with light, soft but ready. Behind them came the river of chrome and leather. 103 motorcycles moving in formation like a military operation. Because that's what it was. An operation. A rescue mission. Code Fallen Youth activated for the 7th time in 6 years. Chaplain rode point directly behind the police cruisers. Ghost beside him. The rest spread out in precise rows, filling 2 lanes of traffic engines, rumbling in synchronized thunder that announced their presence 3 blocks before they arrived. People on the sidewalk stopped to watch. Cars pulled over. 103 bikers moving with purpose through suburban Columbus on a Thursday evening wasn't something you saw every day. In Rebecca's sedan, Tyler sat in the back seat with Addie beside him. He watched the motorcycles in the side mirror, this metal army following to protect him, and something in his chest that had been clenched tight for 7 months began to loosen. Are they really all here for me? He asked for the 3rd time. Every single one, Addie said, but they don't even know me. They know enough. They know a child is suffering. That's all they need to know. Tyler pressed his hand against the window glass, feeling the vibration of the engines through the car frame. Ms. Whitmore, what if Lisa and Robert run away? What if they're gone when we get there? They won't be. Chaplin said there are already 15 brothers watching the house. If the Mitchells try to leave, they'll know. What if they hurt Maya and Emma before we get there? Addie's hand found his squeeze gently. Tyler, I need you to trust me. We're not going to let anything happen to your sisters. I promise. The convoy turned onto Maple Ridge Drive. 3847 sat in the middle of the block. A nice house, two-story colonial, white siding, black shutters, flower beds in front, though the flowers had died weeks ago, and nobody had cleared them. A flagpole in the yard flew an American flag. The house looked like 1,000 other houses in suburban Ohio. Respectable, middle class, safe. But Tyler knew what the outside hid. 15 motorcycles already lined the curb. Bikers stood on the sidewalk, arms crossed, silent. They'd been there for 45 minutes, rotating shifts, making sure nobody left the house, making sure the evidence stayed put. When the convoy arrived, neighbors started emerging onto their porches. Margaret Thompson at 3845, Robert Donovan across the street, Sandra Peterson 3 houses down. They'd heard the rumble, come to investigate. Now they stood watching as 103 bikers filled their quiet street. Lisa Mitchell stood on her front porch, phone pressed to her ear, face pale. She wore a cardigan and khaki pants, pearls at her neck, the uniform of suburban respectability. Behind her, Robert stood in a polo shirt and jeans, confusion written across his face. They looked exactly like concerned parents worried about a misunderstanding. But when Lisa saw the motorcycles, something in her expression cracked. Fear. Real fear. Because performative goodness doesn't work when the audience knows what to look for. Rebecca climbed out of her sedan. 2 officers flanked her. She approached the porch with the kind of professional calm that came from 15 years of dealing with people who lied for a living. Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell, I'm Rebecca Garrison with Cuyahoga County Children's Services. We need to conduct an emergency welfare check on Maya and Emma Carter and a follow-up assessment on Tyler Marlowe. We already had a welfare check 3 weeks ago. Lisa's voice was tight, controlled. Everything was fine. This is harassment. This is a follow-up investigation based on new evidence. Rebecca's tone left no room for argument. I need to inspect the home and interview the children separately. What new evidence? Robert demanded. Who's making accusations? That's confidential. Please allow us inside. Lisa's eyes darted to the bikers. 103 men standing silent on her street, watching, witnessing, making it impossible to perform. And them, are they coming inside too? They're staying outside, Rebecca said, but they're within their legal rights to observe from public property. Chaplin stood at the curb, arms crossed. He didn't speak, didn't need to. His presence said everything. Lisa and Robert had no choice. They stepped aside. Tyler remained in Rebecca's car, watching through the window. Addie stayed with him, one hand on his shoulder. What are they going to find? Addie asked quietly. The truth, Tyler whispered. They're going to find what we've been hiding. The inside of the Mitchell house was exactly what Rebecca had seen 3 weeks ago during her first visit. Clean, organized, middle-class, comfortable. Family photos on the walls showed Lisa and Robert at church picnics, community events, charity dinners. The kitchen gleamed. The living room looked like something from a home decor magazine. Everything in its place. Everything perfect. Too perfect. Rebecca had learned to read houses the way some people read books. 15 years of home visits had taught her that the cleanest houses often hid the dirtiest secrets. I'd like to see the children's bedrooms, she said. Lisa led her upstairs, down a hallway with family photos and inspirational quotes in frames. She opened a door on the right. The bedroom looked like it belonged in a catalog. 2 twin beds with matching comforters, pink and purple. Stuffed animals arranged on the pillows. Posters of cartoon characters on the walls. A bookshelf filled with age-appropriate books. A desk with a lamp and colored pencils arranged in perfect rows. This is where Maya and Emma sleep, Lisa said. Rebecca walked into the room, touched the bedspread, ran her finger along the nightstand. Dust, not a thin layer. Thick dust, the kind that accumulates when something hasn't been touched in weeks. She moved to the windowsill. More dust. She opened the closet. Clothes hanging neatly tagged, still attached. Never worn. Ms. Mitchell, when was the last time the girls slept in this room? Last night. They sleep here every night. Rebecca pulled out her phone, took a photo of the dust-covered nightstand, another of the windowsill, a third of the closet full of unworn clothes. This room hasn't been used in weeks. There's dust on every surface. The beds are made so perfectly they haven't been slept in. The clothes in the closet have never been worn. Rebecca's voice hardened. Where do the children actually sleep? Lisa's face flushed. I don't appreciate the implication. Show me Tyler's room. Lisa opened another door. Single bed, blue comforter, bookshelf with children's books, desk, lamp, posters of sports teams, also covered in dust, also staged, also a lie. Rebecca photographed everything. Then she turned to Lisa with the kind of look that said the performance was over. Ms. Mitchell, I'm going to ask you one more time. Where do the children sleep? Silence. If you don't show me, I'll get a warrant and have officers search every room. Your choice. Robert appeared in the hallway. He looked at Lisa. Some silent communication passed between them. A calculation, a realization that they were caught. Lisa's shoulders slumped. Basement, she whispered. Rebecca felt ice in her veins. Show me. The basement stairs creaked as Rebecca descended. One of the officers followed hand near his weapon, though he wasn't sure what he expected to find. What he found made him radio for backup. The basement was unfinished. Concrete floor, cinder block walls, no windows. 3 mattresses on the floor stained and thin, blankets that looked like they came from a donation bin. 1 bare bulb hanging from the ceiling, 60 watts, barely enough to read by. The temperature was 55 degrees, cold enough to see breath. In the corner, a utility toilet. No sink, no shower, just a toilet and nothing else. And on the door at the top of the stairs, clearly visible from below a deadbolt. On the outside, Rebecca's hands shook as she pulled out her phone. Photographed the mattresses, the concrete floor, the bare bulb, the deadbolt that could only be opened from outside, which meant these children had been locked in, imprisoned. She climbed back up the stairs slowly, each step weighted with the knowledge that she'd been here 3 weeks ago and missed this, that she'd cleared this house, that she'd failed 3 children who'd been sleeping on concrete while she'd checked boxes on a form and moved on to the next case. At the top of the stairs, Lisa stood wringing her hands. They prefer it down there, Lisa said quickly. It's quieter. They asked. Children don't ask to sleep in an unheated basement on concrete. Rebecca's voice shook with controlled rage. Children don't ask to be locked in at night. She turned to the officer. I need photos of the entire basement. Every angle, the deadbolt, the mattresses, everything. Then she pulled out her tablet with hands that trembled from anger and guilt and the terrible weight of having failed. I'm filing for emergency removal of all 3 children effective immediately. They will not be returning to this home tonight or any night until a full investigation is completed. You can't just take them. Lisa's composure cracked. We have rights. We've been caring for these children for 7 months. You lock them in a basement. Rebecca's voice was steel. You staged bedrooms to fool investigators while 3 kids slept on concrete. Your rights ended the moment you chose to abuse them. Robert stepped forward, hands raised in a placating gesture that might have worked on someone who hadn't just seen that basement. Look, maybe it's not ideal, but we've been doing our best with difficult children. Tyler has behavioral issues. The girls needed structure. Save it for the investigation. Rebecca cut him off. Officer, I need to collect the children's belongings. Whatever clothes they have, any medications, school materials. The officer nodded and went to search. He came back 10 minutes later with 3 garbage bags. This is everything I could find that appears to belong to the kids. Rebecca looked inside the bags. 4 outfits total for 3 children, 1 shared toothbrush, 2 school notebooks, no toys, no medications, no personal items. Everything 3 children owned fit in 3 garbage bags. She felt sick. Outside Chaplin stood with Ghost and Hawk watching the house. Waiting, when Rebecca emerged with the garbage bags and rage written all over her face, Chaplin knew. You found it, he said. Not a question. Basement prison. deadbolt on the outside, 3 mattresses on concrete, 55 degrees. Rebecca's voice was hollow. I cleared this house 3 weeks ago. I missed it. I failed them. No, Chaplin said quietly. The system failed them. You're fixing it now. While Rebecca processed the emergency removal paperwork, Hawk and Scout went to work. Because removing the children was step 1. Building the case that would keep them safe permanently was step 2. And for that, they needed evidence. Testimony. The kind of documentation that would make it impossible for the Mitchells to talk their way out of what they'd done. Hawk set up his laptop in the back of a pickup truck parked across the street. Silas Brennan, 52 years old, had spent 22 years hunting financial fraud for the IRS. He knew how to find money people tried to hide, knew how to follow paper trails that criminals thought they'd buried, and foster care fraud left paper trails everywhere. He pulled up the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services database, used contacts he still had from his IRS days, started pulling records. Tyler Marlowe, placed with Mitchell Family October 2024, monthly payment $2,850. Maya Carter and Emma Carter. Sibling group placement November 2024. Combined monthly payment $6,400. Total monthly income from 3 children $9,250. Tax-free. Hawk did the math. 7 months of payments, $64,750. He pulled up the Mitchells' credit card records. Public information from a civil case 2 years ago. Bank statements he accessed through methods he wouldn't explain even if someone asked. Food purchases for household of 5 people, average $400 per month. Children's clothing purchases in 7 months, $0. School supply purchases, $43 total. Medical expenses for children, 1 urgent care visit in December, insurance covered it. Entertainment expenses for children, 0. Hawk's jaw tightened as he calculated. 7 months of income, $64,750. Documented spending on children, approximately $2,800. Profit, $61,950. But that was just 7 months. What about before Hawk dug deeper? Pulled foster placement records going back 5 years. And what he found made his blood run cold. The Mitchells had been licensed foster parents since 2019. In the past 5 years, they'd had 11 different children. 11. Tyler, Maya, and Emma were just the most recent. Hawk pulled up the payment records for each child, did the calculations. His hands moved faster, pulling up spending records, cross-referencing dates, building a timeline of systematic exploitation. 5 years of foster care payments, $555,000. Documented spending on children across all placements, approximately $28,000. Missing money, $527,000. Hawk sat back in his chair, staring at the screen. $500,000. They'd made $500,000 by starving and abusing children. He kept digging, found something worse. 2 of the previous foster children had died while in Mitchell care. Child number 4, a girl named Zoe Bennett, age 7, died March 2021. Cause of death, asthma attack. Medical examiner noted lack of prescribed inhaler in home. Child number 7, a boy named Marcus Wright, age 9, died August 2022. Cause of death, head trauma from fall downstairs. Both deaths investigated. Both ruled accidental. Both followed by life insurance payouts. Zoe Bennett, $75,000. Marcus Wright, $89,000. Hawk felt rage building in his chest. The kind of cold, calculated rage that came from knowing people had profited from dead children. He pulled up the investigative reports on both deaths, read them carefully, found the inconsistencies nobody had looked hard enough to see. Zoe's death report noted she'd been having asthma symptoms for 3 days before the fatal attack. But there was no record of the Mitchells taking her to a doctor. No urgent care visit, no call to the pediatrician. They'd simply let her struggle to breathe until she couldn't anymore. Marcus's death report noted the stairs where he fell were carpeted and the fall distance was only 12 steps. But the head trauma was severe enough to suggest a much harder impact. The investigating officer had noted it was unusual but not impossible. Nobody had pushed further. Nobody had asked the hard questions because the Mitchells were respectable, church-going, the kind of people who couldn't possibly hurt children. Hawk compiled everything into a single document, 5 years of payments, 11 children, 2 deaths, $527,000 in profit, insurance payouts totaling $164,000. He sent it to Rebecca Garrison's email with the subject line, "Urgent, foster care fraud evidence." Then he called Chaplin. "We've got them," Hawk said. 5 years, 11 kids, 2 dead, over $500,000 in fraud. And I've got bank records showing where every dollar went. Chaplin's voice was quiet, dangerous. 2 children died. Zoe Bennett and Marcus Wright. Deaths were investigated and closed. But I pulled the reports. The evidence was there. Nobody looked hard enough. They will now, Chaplin's voice went harder. Send everything to Detective Catherine Brennan in the fraud unit. I've got her number. She'll reopen those cases. Already done. While Hawk built the financial case, Scout and Doc went door to door. Archer Calloway had been a journalist for 15 years before joining the Angels. He knew how to ask questions, how to get people to talk, how to find the story underneath the story. And in a neighborhood like Maple Ridge Drive, where everyone knew everyone else's business, there were always people who'd seen things they'd convinced themselves weren't their problem. Until 103 motorcycles showed up and made it everyone's problem. Scout knocked on the door of 3845 Maple Ridge Drive. Margaret Thompson answered, 67 years old, gray hair in a bun, wearing an apron that smelled like pot roast. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm Archer Calloway. I'm helping document a child welfare case involving your neighbors, the Mitchells. Would you be willing to answer a few questions?" Margaret looked past him at the motorcycles filling the street, at the police cars, at the activity at the Mitchell house. "Is this about those foster children?" "Yes, ma'am." She invited him in. 10 minutes later, Scout had her statement recorded on his phone. "I've lived here 12 years, Margaret said, hands shaking as she held her coffee cup. "I've watched the Mitchells take in 11 different children, always for a few months. Then they're gone and new ones arrive. Did you ever see anything concerning—" Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "Last summer, August, it was 95 degrees. Tyler was mowing the lawn. That little boy, thin as a rail, pushing a mower in that heat. I watched him collapse. Just fell right over. Lisa was sitting on the porch supervising. She didn't even get up. What did you do?" "I ran over with lemonade. Tyler was conscious but disoriented, dehydrated. I tried to give him the drink, and Lisa told me not to. Said, 'Don't coddle them. They need to learn responsibility.'" Margaret wiped her eyes. "I should have called someone. I should have done something. But I told myself it wasn't my business, that maybe I was overreacting." "Mrs. Thompson, what you're doing right now, giving this statement, that's something. It's too late. I watched that child suffer for months, and I did nothing. It's not too late for Maya and Emma. It's not too late to make sure the Mitchells never hurt another child." Margaret signed the written statement, Scout prepared. Her handwriting shook, but the words were clear. Across the street, Doc knocked on Robert Donovan's door. Donovan answered, 45 years old, still in his work clothes, tie loosened. He saw Doc's Hell's Angels vest, and his expression went wary. "I don't want trouble." "No trouble, sir. Just questions about the Mitchell family. 5 minutes of your time." Donovan looked at the scene across the street. The police, the bikers, the realization settling over the neighborhood that something terrible had been hidden in plain sight. "Come in." Donovan's statement was harder to get. Shame made people defensive, but Doc had been a teacher. He knew how to break through walls. "My daughter Lily invited Tyler to her birthday party last December," Donovan said, staring at his hands. "She was turning 8, wanted to invite her whole class. Tyler seemed like a nice kid, quiet, polite. What happened? Lisa Mitchell called me, said foster children had to earn privileges through good behavior, that Tyler hadn't earned the privilege of attending birthday parties." Donovan's voice cracked. "I didn't push back. I just said okay and hung up." "Did you see Tyler after that?" "March, rainstorm. I was driving home from work. Saw him walking down Maple Ridge. No coat, no umbrella, soaking wet. Shivering so hard I could see it from my car." Donovan closed his eyes. "I drove past him. Told myself someone else would help. Told myself it wasn't my place to interfere with how the Mitchells raise their foster kids." "Mr. Donovan, did Tyler look healthy to you?" No, he looked like he was starving, and I did nothing. Doc didn't offer absolution, didn't say it was okay, because it wasn't. Instead, he said, sign this statement. Make sure it matters now. Donovan signed. 3 houses down, Scout found Sandra Peterson, church administrative assistant, Riverside Baptist, where the Mitchells were members. Sandra didn't need convincing. She'd been waiting for someone to ask the right questions. I processed the tithing records, she said, pulling out a folder she'd apparently prepared weeks ago. Lisa and Robert tithe 10% of Robert's salary. He makes $68,000 a year. Their annual tithe is $6,800. That seems normal. It is, says Shus. Except they've been living well above a $68,000 income for 5 years. New Lexus every 3 years. Kitchen renovation in 2022. Bathroom remodel in 2023. Disney vacation last Christmas. Premium cable. Country club membership. Sandra's voice was cold. I did the math. Their spending patterns suggest an income of at least $150,000 annually. Where did you think the extra money came from? I didn't ask, should have. But when you see church members living beyond their means, you assume a spouse has family money or they're going into debt. She paused. I never thought they were starving children for profit. Sandra handed Scout a detailed financial breakdown she'd compiled. Dates, purchases, estimates, evidence of a lifestyle that couldn't be supported by Robert's salary alone. The money came from those kids, Sandra said quietly, from not feeding them, not clothing them, not caring for them. And we all saw them every Sunday at church, thin, quiet. And we told ourselves the Mitchells were angels for taking in foster children. By 9 p.m., Scout and Doc had collected statements from 6 neighbors, 6 people who'd seen, 6 people who'd convinced themselves it wasn't their business, 6 witnesses whose guilt would now serve as testimony. While the neighborhood canvass continued, Hawk made another call, this time to former foster children who'd aged out or been moved from the Mitchell home. The first number he tried didn't answer. The second went to voicemail. The third picked up on the 5th ring. Hello. Is this Jessica Brennan? Who's asking? My name is Silas Brennan, no relation. I'm a private investigator working on a case involving Lisa and Robert Mitchell. Records show you were placed with them in 2020 when you were 11 years old. Silence on the line. Jessica, are you there? I don't want to talk about them. So her voice was tight, young, cared even, years later. I understand, but there are 3 children currently in their home. And if you have information that could help protect those kids, are they okay, the kids? They're being removed tonight, but we're building a case to make sure they never go back, to make sure the Mitchells never get another placement. More silence. Then I was there for 8 months. Worst 8 months of my life. Can you tell me what happened? Jessica's story spilled out, halting at first, then faster, like a dam breaking. She'd been so hungry all the time. 1 meal a day, sometimes less. She'd lost 15 pounds in 8 months. Started stealing food from the school cafeteria, eating what other kids threw away. They'd made her clean the house top to bottom every weekend. Bathrooms, kitchen, windows, while Lisa and Robert watched TV or went out. When Jessica told her caseworker, Lisa had cried. Said Jessica was troubled, angry, making up stories for attention. The caseworker believed Lisa. Jessica was moved to another home 2 weeks later. She'd been so relieved to leave, she never pushed to file formal charges. I should have fought harder, Jessica said, crying now. I should have made someone believe me. But I was 11 and scared, and I just wanted out. Jessica, you were a child. You did what you had to do to survive. But other kids got hurt because I didn't speak up. Other kids are being saved because you're speaking up now. Can I record your statement? Can you tell it again officially? Yes, if it helps those kids, yes. Hawk recorded 15 minutes of testimony. Details that match what they were finding. A pattern, a system, a machine that turned vulnerable children into profit. The second former foster child he reached was named Michael Torres, 14 years old now, had been with the Mitchells at age 9 for 6 months in 2022. They coached us before caseworker visits, Michael said. Lisa would sit us down the night before, Tell us exactly what to say. Everything's fine. We eat 3 meals a day. We have our own rooms. Lisa and Robert are great. What happened if you didn't say what she told you to say? She never said explicitly, but the implication was clear. If we told the truth, they'd split up sibling groups. They'd send us somewhere worse. We'd lose what little we had. Did you believe her? I was 9. I believed her. Michael's voice hardened with an anger that came from years of hindsight. I lied to protect myself. And now I have to live with the fact that other kids suffered because I was too scared to tell the truth. Michael, you were 9 years old. The adults failed you, not the other way around. By 10 p.m., Hawk had video testimonies from 2 former foster children, statements from 6 neighbors, financial evidence documenting $527,000 in fraud, and a growing rage that 3 children had been sleeping on concrete while the system that was supposed to protect them had failed. Again and again and again. Inside the Mitchell house, Rebecca had finished processing the emergency removal paperwork. Tyler, Maya, and Emma would be placed in emergency foster care tonight with a family she'd already contacted. James and Rita Merrick, former teachers, licensed for 12 years, vetted not just by CPS but by Hawk's background check. All that remained was the confrontation. Rebecca stood in the Mitchell living room with 2 police officers, Chaplain Ghost and Hawk. Lisa and Robert sat on their couch looking like refugees from their own lie. Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell, Rebecca said, voice formal, I'm filing for emergency removal of Tyler Marlowe, Maya Carter, and Emma Carter, effective immediately. The children will not be returning to this home pending investigation. On what grounds? Lisa's voice was shrill now. The performance was over. The mask was cracking. On the grounds that you imprisoned 3 children in an unfinished basement, that you systematically neglected their physical and emotional needs, that you exploited them for financial gain. Rebecca's voice was ice. And based on evidence we've uncovered tonight, there will be additional charges. Hawk stepped forward with his laptop. Lisa and Robert Mitchell, over the past 5 years, you've received $555,000 in foster care payments from the state of Ohio. You spent approximately $28,000 of that on the children in your care. Where did the other $527,000 go? Lisa's face went white. We have bank records, Hawk continued, savings accounts, investment portfolios, credit card statements, new cars, home renovations, vacations, all paid for with money meant to care for vulnerable children. That's not, we didn't, Robert stammered. We also found life insurance policies on 2 former foster children who died in your care, Zoe Bennett and Marcus Wright, $75,000 and $89,000 respectively. The room went silent. Chaplin's voice cut through like a blade. You profited from dead children. Those were accidents. Lisa's voice broke. We didn't. Zoe's asthma, Marcus fell. Zoe Bennett had an asthma attack after you failed to provide her prescribed medication for 3 days, Hawk said, voice clinical, deadly. Marcus Wright suffered head trauma inconsistent with a 12-step carpeted staircase fall. Both deaths were investigated inadequately. Both will be reopened. Detective Catherine Brennan entered the house, 42-years-old fraud unit carrying warrants. Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell, I'm Detective Brennan. Based on evidence compiled tonight, I have warrants for your financial records, your computer, and your arrest. She read them their rights. The words fell into the shocked silence of the living room like stones into water. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. The handcuffs clicked. Lisa sobbed. Robert stood frozen, the reality finally penetrating that they weren't going to talk their way out of this. There was no performance that would work. No lie that would hold. 103 witnesses stood outside. Financial evidence documented $500,000 in fraud. Medical evidence documented abuse. Neighbors testified to years of neglect. And 2 children were dead. This is a mistake, Lisa said, tears streaming down her face. We gave those children a home. We fed them. We cared for them better than anyone else was willing to. You locked them in a basement, Rebecca said quietly. You starved them while spending their support money on yourselves. You used children as unpaid labor, and when they died, you collected insurance. She paused, let that sink in. You didn't give them a home. You gave them a prison, and you charged the state for the privilege. Robert turned on Lisa. 7 months of partnership in abuse crumbling in an instant. This was your idea, he hissed. You said it would just be temporary. You said, you hit them, Lisa screamed back. You locked them in the basement. Don't you dare put this all on me. Detective Brennan separated them. Different police cars, different holding cells. The partnership dissolved before they even left the driveway. As they were let out in handcuffs, Lisa looked back at her house, at the life she'd built on the suffering of 11 children, at the performance that had finally been exposed. We didn't mean to hurt them, she whispered. Chaplin stood in the doorway, massive and immovable. Yes, he said quietly, you did. Every single day for 5 years, you chose to hurt them. You chose profit over children. You chose comfort over their safety. You chose to let 2 kids die and then cash the checks. He stepped aside as the officers led the Mitchells to separate cruisers. May God have mercy on you, because nobody else will. The police cars drove away, red and blue lights fading into the distance. The house at 3847 Maple Ridge Drive stood empty. Evidence tape across the door. Inside, 3 garbage bags containing everything 3 children owned sat in the hallway. Outside, 103 motorcycles remained, silent, waiting, witnessing what happened when counting became action. Tyler, Maya, and Emma sat in Rebecca's sedan, watching the house where they'd been imprisoned for 7 months, watching the police cars drive away with Lisa and Robert in handcuffs. Tyler's hand found Maya's. Maya's found Emma's. 3 children who'd survived together, holding on to each other like anchors. Are they really arrested? Maya whispered. Like actually arrested? Yes, Rebecca said from the front seat. They're going to jail. They're not coming back. Emma, 6 years old, who hadn't spoken more than 10 words at a time in months, said something that made everyone in the car stop breathing. Can we really eat whenever we want now? Rebecca turned around in her seat, looked at this tiny child who'd learned that food was a privilege that could be revoked, and felt something break inside her chest. Sweetheart, she said, voice thick, yes, always, forever. You will never be hungry again. Tyler pulled both his sisters close, thin arms around thin shoulders. 3 children who weighed a combined 148 pounds when they should weigh closer to 200. We're safe, Tyler whispered. Ms. Whitmore counted, and these people came, and we're safe. Addie sat beside them, one hand on Tyler's shoulder. 47 days of counting, 7 months of suffering. But leading to this moment, the motorcycles started their engines, one by one, then together. A symphony of thunder announcing that silence was over, that counting mattered, that showing up saved lives. Chaplin walked to Rebecca's car, leaned down to the window where Tyler sat. Son, my daughter Katie died 27 years ago because nobody showed up for her. Nobody counted her days. Nobody cared enough to see. His voice was rough with emotion. We couldn't save Katie, but we saved you. We saved Maya. We saved Emma. And we're going to make sure you're never hurt again. Tyler looked up at this massive man with the gray beard and the Hells Angels patch, and the grief that never quite healed. Thank you for coming, Tyler said simply. Thank you for surviving long enough for someone to notice. The convoy reformed, Rebecca's sedan leading, 2 police cars following. Behind them, a river of chrome and leather. They were taking 3 children to a new home. To James and Rita Merrick, who'd prepared beds and food and safety. To a future that didn't include concrete floors and deadbolts and hunger that gnawed like a living thing. As they drove away from Maple Ridge Drive, Tyler looked back one last time at 3847, at the house that had been his prison. Then he turned forward, toward whatever came next, toward people who'd counted, who'd cared, who'd shown up. 47 days of silence had ended, and the thunder of justice had just begun. The Merrick house sat on a quiet street in Delaware, Ohio, 23 miles north of Columbus. A craftsman-style home with a porch that wrapped around the front, painted soft blue with white trim. The kind of house that looked like it had stories to tell and room for more. James and Rita Merrick stood on that porch at 11:47 p.m. waiting. Both 50 years old, married 28 years, former teachers who'd spent 12 years as licensed foster parents. Childless by choice originally, then by purpose, when they realized how many children needed temporary safe harbor. They'd gotten the call from Rebecca Garrison 2 hours ago. 3 children, emergency placement, severe trauma. Would they take them tonight? They'd said yes before she finished asking. Now they watched headlights approach. The white sedan, the police escort, and behind them the rumble of motorcycles that had accompanied these children from hell to something that might eventually feel like home. Rebecca's car pulled into the driveway. The motorcycles parked along the street, engines cutting one by one until the night went quiet again. Tyler, Maya, and Emma climbed out slowly. 3 children with garbage bags containing everything they owned, standing in a stranger's driveway at midnight, trying to believe this might be different. Rita Merrick came down the porch steps. She didn't rush, didn't crowd them, just knelt on the walkway so she could meet their eyes at their level. Tyler, Maya, Emma, I'm Rita. That's my husband, James. She gestured to the man standing on the porch, tall and gentle-faced, hands in his pockets to look less imposing. We know you've had a terrible night, a terrible 7 months, and we know you don't have any reason to trust us yet. But I want you to know 3 things. She held up one finger. 1, you're safe here. Really safe. No basements, no locks on doors. No one will hurt you. Second finger. 2, you can eat whenever you're hungry. The kitchen is always open. You never have to ask permission for food. Ever. Third finger. 3, this is temporary until Rebecca finds you a permanent placement. But while you're here, you're family, which means you matter. Your feelings matter. Your needs matter. You matter. Emma stared at this woman kneeling in the driveway, promising things that sounded impossible. Can we really eat whenever we want? Her voice was tiny, disbelieving. Rita's eyes filled with tears. Sweetheart, yes, always. I promise you. Tyler's hand tightened on his garbage bag. What if we eat too much? What if we're expensive to feed? The question broke Rita's heart clean in half. A 10-year-old boy worried about being too expensive to keep alive. Tyler, honey, you could eat everything in my kitchen 3 times over and I'd just go buy more. You're children. You're supposed to eat. You're supposed to grow. That's what children do. James came down from the porch, moving slowly. Let me take those bags for you. Your room is upstairs. We've got 3 beds set up. You can sleep separately or together, whatever feels safest tonight. Together, Maya said quickly. We need to stay together. Then together it is. Inside the Merrick house smelled like vanilla and old books. Warm, lived in, real. The living room had worn furniture that looked comfortable instead of perfect. The kitchen had dishes in the sink because real people lived here and hadn't staged anything. Rita led them upstairs to a large bedroom with 3 twin beds, each made up with thick comforters and multiple pillows. A nightlight glowed in the corner. The window had curtains that could be closed for darkness, but didn't have bars. Bathroom is across the hall, Rita said. Towels are in the closet. If you need anything, anything at all, James and I are in the room at the end of the hall. Our door stays open. You can come get us anytime. She paused at the doorway. Are you hungry? I can make sandwiches, heat up soup, whatever sounds good. The 3 children looked at each other, testing, waiting for the catch. Really, Tyler asked. It's almost midnight. Time doesn't matter when kids are hungry. What do you want us? 20 minutes later. Tyler, Maya, and Emma sat at the Merrick kitchen table eating grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup. Real food, hot food, more food than they'd seen in months. Tyler ate slowly at first, waiting for someone to say, stop, that's enough, you're being greedy. But Rita just kept refilling bowls and asking if they wanted more. Maya ate 3 sandwiches, Emma 2, Tyler 4. When Emma asked quietly if she could have a cookie, Rita brought out a whole package of Oreos and said, take as many as you want. Emma took 2, held them like treasure. Rita wanted to cry, wanted to scoop these broken children into her arms and promise them everything would be okay. But she'd been doing this long enough to know trust wasn't given, it was earned. In small moments. Over time. So instead she said, the whole package stays in the pantry. You can have cookies whenever you want. I'll show you where everything is tomorrow. At 1:30 in the morning, 3 children climbed into 3 beds in the same room. Tyler in the middle, Maya and Emma on either side, close enough to hold hands if they reached out. James and Rita stood in the doorway watching these thin children burrow under thick blankets, trying to believe in warmth. We're really safe here, Tyler whispered into the darkness. Really safe, James said. I promise. Tyler lay still, listening. waiting for the sound of a deadbolt clicking, for footsteps on stairs, for the voice that said, "Get up, work, earn your existence." But all he heard was quiet, and somewhere down the hall, the soft sound of Rita crying in her own room because three children had asked permission to eat cookies. For the first time in 7 months, Tyler let himself sleep without counting the hours until morning work began. May 16th, the morning after. Tyler woke to sunlight, real sunlight, not the bare bulb of a basement. He jerked awake disoriented before remembering. The Merrick house, the grilled cheese, the promise of safety. He looked at the clock, 8:15 a.m. Panic flooded his chest. They'd overslept. They were supposed to be up at 3:30, working by 4. There would be consequences. He shook Maya awake. "Maya, we're late. We have to, Tyler." James Merrick stood in the doorway holding a tray. "You're not late. There's no schedule here except the one you make. You can sleep as long as you need. But we have to clean. We have to earn. You don't have to earn anything. You're children. The only thing you have to do is heal." James set the tray on the dresser. Pancakes, eggs, bacon, orange juice, enough food for all three children with leftovers. Rita made breakfast. "You can eat up here if you're more comfortable or come down to the kitchen. Whatever feels safest." He left the tray and walked out, leaving the door open. Tyler stared at the food. Maya and Emma woke up, saw it, and Emma started crying. "What's wrong?" Tyler asked, pulling her close. "I thought I was dreaming," Emma sobbed. "I thought I dreamed the food and waking up here and being safe, but it's real. The pancakes are real." They ate breakfast in bed, all three of them, sitting cross-legged on Tyler's mattress, sharing food from the tray, eating until their stomachs hurt from fullness instead of emptiness. When they finally came downstairs at 9:30, Rita was in the kitchen doing dishes. She turned and smiled. "Morning. Sleep okay?" "Yes, ma'am," Tyler said quietly. "Thank you for breakfast, and for the beds, and for, his voice caught. "For everything." "You're welcome." And Tyler, "You don't have to thank me for basic care. That's just what adults are supposed to do." That afternoon, Declan Medic O'Brien arrived at the Merrick house with his medical kit. 55 years old, former combat medic, carrying 34 years of knowing how to assess damage the human body could survive. He set up in the Merrick dining room, spread out his equipment, and examined three children who'd been systematically starved. Tyler first, height 4 feet 2 inches, unchanged from 8 months ago, growth completely stunted, weight 58 pounds, should be 68 to 75 minimum, blood pressure low, heart rate elevated, signs of chronic malnutrition. Medic checked Thor's arms, his ribs, his back, counted 12 distinct bruises at various healing stages, photographed each one with a medical ruler for scale, documented the finger width spacing that matched adult male hands. "Tyler, I need to check your range of motion. This might be uncomfortable, but I'll be gentle." He moved Tyler's arms, his legs, checked for old breaks that hadn't healed properly, found evidence of muscle wasting, the kind of damage that came from a growing boy not getting enough protein to build what he should be building. "How's your back feel? Any sharp pain?" "It hurts sometimes, in the morning mostly." "That's from sleeping on concrete. Your spine's been compressed. We'll get you to a physical therapist. With proper care, you should recover fully." Medic's clinical assessment went into his notes with the kind of precision that would hold up in court. Patient shows signs of severe malnutrition, including stunted growth, muscle wasting, and developmental delays. Bruising pattern consistent with repeated physical abuse by adult male. Chronic pain in lower back, consistent with prolonged sleeping on hard surfaces. Recommendations: nutritional rehabilitation under medical supervision, physical therapy, trauma counseling, regular monitoring. Maya next, 8 years old, weight 52 pounds, should be 58 to 65. Her asthma was the most concerning. She had an attack while Medic examined her breathing going tight and wheezy. He pulled out an inhaler he'd brought, coached her through using it. "How long have you been without your medicine?" "Since November. Lisa said inhalers were expensive and I needed to learn to breathe properly." Medic's jaw tightened. He didn't let his anger show. These kids had seen enough adult anger to last a lifetime. "Asthma doesn't work that way, sweetheart. Your body needs help. That's not weakness, that's just biology. We're getting you a new prescription today. He documented everything, the untreated asthma, the speech delays, the fact that Maya's vocabulary tested 18 months behind her grade level, likely from stress and inadequate cognitive stimulation. Emma last, 6 years old, 38 pounds, should be 44 to 50. The youngest, the most vulnerable, the one showing what the medical literature called failure to thrive, not just physical malnutrition, but emotional starvation. The kind that happened when children learned the world was unsafe and adults couldn't be trusted. She flinched every time Medic moved her, even though he'd been nothing but gentle. Flinched when James walked through the room. Flinched at sudden sounds. Emma, honey, I'm going to listen to your heart now. This might feel cold. He placed the stethoscope on her chest. Her heart rate was fast. Too fast. The elevated rate of someone living in constant fear. Medic's notes on Emma were the hardest to write. Patient exhibits signs of severe psychological trauma in addition to physical neglect. Extreme anxiety around adult males. Startled response to normal household sounds. Night terrors documented by emergency foster parents. This child has experienced trauma that will require extensive therapeutic intervention. When he finished all 3 exams, Medic sat down with Rita and James. These kids are going to need a team. Pediatrician for ongoing monitoring, nutritionist for meal planning, physical therapist for Tyler's back, pulmonologist for Maya's asthma, trauma therapist for all 3, especially Emma. He paused. This isn't going to be easy or quick. They've been neglected for at least 7 months, possibly longer. Recovery will take time. We've got time, Rita said quietly. Good, because they're going to need every bit of it. While the children began the slow work of learning to feel safe, the legal machinery of justice ground into motion. Prosecutor Amanda Wilson received Hawk's financial evidence at midnight on May 15th. She read it sitting at her kitchen table with coffee going cold beside her, $527,000. 11 children, 2 deaths. By 8 a.m. on May 16th, she'd filed expanded charges. Lisa Mitchell and Robert Mitchell were arraigned on May 17th. Bond hearing. They appeared in orange jumpsuits separated by courthouse security because they'd already tried to attack each other once. Their attorney, a public defender named Marcus Webb, who looked exhausted before the hearing even started, argued for reduced bond. Your Honor, my clients are first-time offenders with ties to the community. They're not flight risks. $50,000 each would be more than adequate. Amanda Wilson stood. Your Honor, the defendants are charged with 4 counts of felony child endangerment, 3 counts of fraud, 3 counts of false imprisonment, 2 counts of child labor violations, and 2 counts of felony murder in connection with the deaths of Zoe Bennett and Marcus Wright. The judge's eyebrows rose. Felony murder. Evidence suggests the defendants deliberately withheld medical care from Zoe Bennett during a severe asthma attack while maintaining a life insurance policy on her. Marcus Wright's death shows injuries inconsistent with the reported 12-step fall. Both deaths are being investigated as homicides committed during the course of child abuse. Amanda pulled out photographs. Tyler's bruises, the basement prison, Maya's untreated asthma, Emma's hollow eyes. These defendants ran a systematic operation exploiting vulnerable children for profit over 5 years. They have $527,000 in assets that should have been used to care for children. They're financially capable of fleeing, and given the severity of charges, they have every motivation to do so. Judge Patricia Morrison looked at the evidence, looked at the Mitchells. 30 years on the bench had given her the ability to read people. Bond is set at $500,000 each, no 10% option, ish or property only. The Mitchells didn't have it. Their assets were frozen pending restitution. They would await trial in separate facilities. As they were led away, Lisa looked back at Robert with pure hatred. This is your fault. You hit them. You're the one who... Shut up, Robert screamed. You're the one who came up with the whole scheme. You're the one who said we deserve that money. The partnership that had abused 11 children dissolved into accusations and blame. They were separated, different jails, unable to coordinate stories, unable to perform for each other. Exactly what the prosecution wanted. June moved into July. The case built like a cathedral, piece by piece, stone by stone. Hawk compiled the financial evidence into a presentation that would make a jury understand exactly what the Mitchells had done. Spreadsheets showing income versus spending. Bank statements documenting the missing $527,000. Investment portfolios that had grown while children starved. He found the life insurance policies, pulled the death certificates, cross-referenced the timeline. Zoe Bennett died March 14, 2021. Life insurance claim filed March 21st. Check deposited April 3rd, $75,000. Marcus Wright died August 9th, 2022. Claim filed August 15th. Check deposited September 1st, $89,000. 6 weeks after Zoe's death, the Mitchells had renovated their kitchen. Granite countertops, new appliances, cost $68,000. 2 months after Marcus's death, they'd bought a Lexus, $42,000. The money trail was damning. Children had died and the Mitchells had remodeled. Scout tracked down more former foster children, compiled video testimonies, built a pattern that showed this wasn't isolated incidents but systematic exploitation. A girl who'd been placed at age 7 removed at 8. She remembered being locked in the basement, remembered Lisa coaching her to lie to the caseworker, remembered being so hungry she ate toothpaste because it was the only thing in the bathroom that had flavor. A boy placed at age 10 removed at 11. He remembered Robert's fists, the bruises that were always covered by long sleeves, the way Lisa would cry and play the victim whenever anyone questioned their methods. Each testimony added weight, added evidence, added to the edifice of justice being constructed. Detective Catherine Brennan reopened the investigations into Zoe Bennett's and Marcus Wright's deaths. What had been cursory examinations became full homicide investigations. Zoe's medical records showed she'd been prescribed an albuterol inhaler. Prescription filled October 20th, 2020. Should have lasted 6 months with normal use. But when she died in March, the prescription hadn't been refilled. The Mitchells claimed they'd forgotten, except their credit card records showed they'd been to the pharmacy 11 times during that 5-month period for their own medications. They'd driven past the pharmacy where Zoe's life-saving medication waited, chose not to pick it up, and a child died. Medical examiner's original report, accidental death due to asthma complications. New review with additional context, death due to medical neglect. Homicide. Marcus Wright's death was harder to prove, but the evidence was there for anyone willing to look. Original report, fell down interior carpeted stairs. 12 steps, head trauma consistent with fall. But crime scene photos showed something the original investigator had noted and dismissed. Blood spatter on the wall at the top of the stairs. Not the bottom, the top. Marcus hadn't fallen down the stairs. He'd been struck at the top, bled there, then either fallen or been pushed. The medical examiner who reviewed the case found what the first one had missed. Skull fracture pattern, more consistent with impact from a blunt object than a fall. Defensive wounds on Marcus's hands. Signs he'd tried to protect himself. New determination, suspicious death, likely homicide. The charges were upgraded. 2 counts of felony murder became 2 counts of second-degree murder. The Mitchells hadn't planned to kill Zoe and Marcus, but they'd caused their deaths through deliberate actions during the commission of felonies. In Ohio, that carried 20 years to life. Tyler turned 11 on July 3rd. The Merricks threw him a birthday party. Nothing elaborate, just cake and ice cream, and the 3 foster children, plus Addie Ghost Chaplain, and the core members of the Angels watch team. Tyler stared at the cake like he didn't understand what it meant. 11 candles, his name in frosting, people singing to him. "Make a wish," Rita said gently. Tyler closed his eyes, wished, blew out candles. Later, when everyone had gone home, Rita asked what he'd wished for. "I wish that Maya and Emma could stay with me, that we wouldn't get separated." Rita's heart broke and mended at the same time. "Tyler, honey, we're already working on that. The plan is to keep you 3 together. Wherever you end up permanently, you'll be together. Can we stay here?" The question hung in the air, heavy with hope and fear. "James and I would love that," Rita said carefully, "but that's a decision that takes time, that you get to help make. We don't want to rush you into anything. You've had enough adults making decisions for you." "I don't need time. I know I want to stay here. Is that okay?" Rita pulled him into a hug. "More than okay." The adoption paperwork was filed on July 15th, pending the children's consent, pending the trial, pending the final severance of parental rights from the Mitchells. But it was filed. It was real. 3 children who'd come with garbage bags might become 3 children who stayed. August 15th, 2025. The trial began. The courtroom was packed. Every seat taken, 103 Hells Angels in the gallery, silent presence that said, "We're watching, we're witnessing, justice will be served." Judge Patricia Morrison presiding, same judge who'd set the bond. She looked at the packed courtroom and banged her gavel once. "I will have order. This is a court of law, not a circus. Everyone will remain seated and quiet or you'll be removed." Understood. The bikers nodded. Chaplin had already briefed everyone. Silence was more powerful than words. Presence was the message. Day 1. Opening arguments. Amanda Wilson stood. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about a business, a profitable business. For 5 years, Lisa and Robert Mitchell ran an operation that generated $555,000 in revenue. Their inventory was children. Their profit margin was 95%. And when inventory became inconvenient, they disposed of it." She let that sink in. This isn't a case about struggling parents who made mistakes. This is a case about systematic exploitation, about fraud, about 2 children who died and 2 adults who cashed the checks, about 3 children who survived only because a teacher counted to 47. The defense attorney, Marcus Webb, looked like he already knew he'd lost. "Members of the jury, my clients made errors in judgment. They were overwhelmed. The foster care system failed to support them. They did their best with difficult children in difficult circumstances." His heart wasn't in it. How could it be? The evidence was overwhelming. Day 2, medical testimony. Dr. Eleanor Ashford, pediatrician, who'd examined Tyler, Maya, and Emma in the weeks after removal, took the stand. Tyler Marlowe's height hadn't increased in 8 months. That suggests chronic malnutrition severe enough to completely halt growth. His weight was 15 pounds below minimum healthy range. His body was cannibalizing muscle tissue to survive. Photographs projected on screens, Tyler's ribs visible through his skin, his spine protruding, his arms thin enough to wrap fingers around. The jury looked horrified. Maya's asthma records came next. Prescription unfilled for 5 months, while the Mitchells visited the pharmacy regularly for their own medications. A child struggling to breathe while adults chose not to pick up her life-saving medication. Emma's psychological evaluation, night terrors, anxiety disorder, attachment issues, the kind of damage that would take years to heal. Medic testified as an expert witness on the physical evidence of abuse. These bruises show a clear pattern. Different stages of healing indicate repeated incidents over time. The sizes and spacing match adult male hands. This wasn't one incident. This was ongoing physical abuse. Day 2 afternoon, financial testimony. Hawk took the stand, projected his spreadsheets. The jury watched $555,000 of income reduced to $28,000 in child expenses. Watched profit margins that would make corporations envious. Watched a business plan built on suffering. Where did the missing $527,000 go? Amanda asked. Home renovations, new cars, vacations, investment portfolios, savings accounts. Hawk pulled up bank statements. The defendants lived well while children slept on concrete floors. The life insurance policies came next. Jury members gasped audibly. Zoe Bennett died, $75,000 collected. Kitchen renovated 6 weeks later. Marcus Wright died, $89,000 collected. Lexus purchased 2 months later. Did the defendants profit from these children's deaths? Yes, $164,000 total. Day 3, witness testimony. Margaret Thompson, Robert Donovan, Sandra Peterson, 6 neighbors who'd seen and convinced themselves it wasn't their business. Former foster children. Video testimonies from Jessica and Michael. Their voices shaking but their words clear. Describing hunger, fear, abuse, the coaching before caseworker visits. Rebecca Garrison took the stand and did something brave. She admitted failure. I investigated the Mitchell home on November 12th. I cleared it, found adequate conditions, Close the case. Her voice shook. I was wrong. I relied on a checklist instead of trusting my instincts. I let those children down. What changed? Amanda asked. A teacher who counted to 47, who documented what I missed, who cared enough to see what I should have seen. The defense tried to discredit her, tried to suggest she was covering for her own mistakes. It backfired. The jury saw a woman taking responsibility, saw the system failing despite good intentions, saw exactly why Code Fallen Youth had been necessary. Day 3 afternoon, Tyler's testimony, he didn't appear in person, too traumatic to face the Mitchells. Instead, closed-circuit video from a safe room with Dr. Miriam Blackwell, the trauma therapist who'd worked with him for 3 months. Tyler's face filled the screens. 11 years old now, healthier than he'd been in May, weighed up to 68 pounds, color in his face, but still bearing the marks of what he'd survived. Tyler, can you describe where you slept at the Mitchell house? Amanda's voice came through speakers, gentle. The basement, on a mattress on concrete. It was cold, there were no windows. The door had a lock on the outside. Were you locked inside? Every night from 9 p.m. until 3:30 a.m. What happened at 3:30 a.m.? We had to wake up and work, clean the house, do laundry, make breakfast. We had to be done before they woke up at 6. How much did you eat each day? Tyler's voice was steady, but his hands shook. 1 slice of bread for breakfast, no lunch at school because we didn't have lunch money. Sometimes dinner was a small portion of whatever they made for themselves. Sometimes nothing. Were you hungry? Every day, all the time. The courtroom was silent except for Tyler's voice. Did Robert Mitchell ever hit you? Yes. How many times? I don't know, a lot. When I asked for food, when I was too slow with chores, when he was angry. Can you show us where he hit you? Tyler pulled up his sleeve on the video screen. The bruises had healed, but the scars remained. Small marks where the worst ones had been. The jury had already seen photographs, but seeing Tyler himself was different. Did you tell anyone? I tried, I told the caseworker, but Lisa coached us. Said if we told the truth, we'd be separated. Said we'd go somewhere worse. I believed her. What changed? For the first time, Tyler smiled slightly. Ms. Whitmore counted. For 47 days she counted. And on day 47, I was so tired of being scared that I told the truth. What did you say? Please don't make me go back there. Tyler's testimony lasted 40 minutes. When it ended, there wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. The jury had seen the evidence, heard the testimonies, watched a child describe 7 months of systematic abuse. Day 4, defense. Marcus Webb called character witnesses. Church members who'd known the Mitchells for years. People who testified they were kind, generous, committed to helping children. Amanda cross-examined each one. Did you ever visit their home unannounced? No. Did you ever see where the children slept? No. Did you know they were collecting $9,000 a month in foster care payments? No. The character witnesses crumbled under questioning. They knew the performance. They didn't know the truth. Robert Mitchell took the stand against his lawyer's advice. It was a disaster. Amanda destroyed him, asked about the basement, about the bruises, about the money, about Zoe and Marcus. Robert tried to deflect, tried to blame Lisa, tried to claim he was a victim too, that he'd been abused as a child and didn't know any better. Mr. Mitchell, you were abused in foster care, correct? Yes, for 7 years. So you knew exactly what it felt like to be a terrified child in an adult's power. Yes. And you chose to inflict that same terror on Tyler, Maya, Emma, and 8 other children. Silence. You became the monster you feared, isn't that right? I didn't mean to. Robert broke down. I saw my foster father in the mirror. Every time I raised my hand to Tyler, I saw Frank Kellerman. I became him. God help me, I became him. The jury watched him cry, watched him admit to becoming his abuser. Sympathy died. Understanding his pain didn't excuse creating more. Lisa didn't testify. Webb advised against it, and she took the advice. Day 4, closing arguments. Amanda Wilson stood before the jury. For 5 years, Lisa and Robert Mitchell ran a business. They collected $555,000. They spent $28,000 on children. They profited $527,000. When 2 children died, they collected insurance. When 3 children survived, a teacher had to count to 47 before anyone noticed. She paused. This isn't about mistakes. This is about choices. Every day for 5 years, they chose profit over children. They chose comfort over safety. They chose to let Zoe Bennett struggle for breath rather than pick up her medication. They chose to strike Marcus Wright hard enough to kill him. They chose to lock Tyler, Maya, and Emma in a basement. The defense will ask you to feel sympathy, to understand their difficult childhood, their struggles. But understanding trauma doesn't excuse inflicting it on others. Robert Mitchell knew what abuse felt like. That made his choice to abuse others worse, not better. She looked at each juror. These defendants ran a business. The product was suffering. The profit was $500,000. 2 children died. 3 barely survived. Find them guilty. Tell them that children aren't inventory, that suffering isn't profitable, that justice matters. Webb's closing was half-hearted. He knew. The jury knew. Everyone knew. Deliberation 1 hour and 33 minutes. Verdict: guilty on all counts. Lisa Mitchell sobbed. Robert Mitchell sat frozen. Judge Morrison set sentencing for 2 weeks. August 29, 2025. The courtroom filled again. Same 103 witnesses. Same silent presence. Judge Morrison looked at Lisa and Robert Mitchell, both in orange jumpsuits, both refusing to look at each other. In 30 years on this bench, I have never seen such calculated cruelty. You didn't make mistakes. You ran a business. Children were your inventory. Their suffering was your profit margin. When they died, you collected insurance and remodeled your kitchen. She paused, let the weight of that settle. Lisa Mitchell, 4 counts felony child endangerment, 3 counts fraud, 3 counts false imprisonment, 2 counts child labor violations, 2 counts second-degree murder in the deaths of Zoe Bennett and Marcus Wright. I sentence you to 15 years in state prison with no eligibility for parole for 10 years. Lisa's sobs echoed in the silent courtroom. Robert Mitchell, same counts. I sentence you to 18 years in state prison with no eligibility for parole for 12 years. The gavel fell. Additionally, you will pay full restitution of $527,000 to a trust fund for your victims, plus $164,000 to the families of Zoe Bennett and Marcus Wright. You are permanently barred from foster care, child care, or elder care positions. This court is adjourned. Outside chaplain spoke to assembled media. This isn't about vengeance. This is about accountability, about making sure every child in the system knows someone is watching. Someone cares. Someone will show up. Behind him, 103 motorcycles lined the street. A promise kept. 6 months later, February 2026. Tyler stood in the Merrick kitchen making breakfast, actually making it, not working as punishment. Rita had taught him how to crack eggs without getting shells in the pan, how to flip pancakes, how to cook because it was a useful skill, not because he had to earn his existence. He weighed 72 pounds now, healthy range for his age. His height had started increasing again, 4 feet 5 inches, growing like he should have been all along. Maya sat at the table doing homework. Her asthma was managed. Her speech therapy was working. She'd gone from 18 months behind to 6 months behind, still catching up but making progress. Emma played with dolls in the living room. She was in play therapy twice a week. The night terrors had decreased from every night to once or twice a week. She still flinched sometimes when James entered a room suddenly, but less often. Trust was building, slowly, in small moments. The adoption had been finalized 3 weeks ago, February 8th. A quiet courthouse ceremony, Judge Morrison presiding. Do you, Tyler Marlowe, Maya Carter, and Emma Carter, consent to being adopted by James and Rita Merrick? 3 children had said yes, their legal names now Tyler Marlowe Merrick, Maya Carter Merrick, Emma Carter Merrick. They'd chosen to keep their original names as middle names, who they were, who they'd been, incorporated into who they were becoming. Tyler flipped a pancake, watched it land perfectly, felt a small surge of pride. Tyler, you're getting really good at that, Rita said, siping comfy at the counter. Thanks, Mom. The words still felt strange in his mouth. Mom. Not Rita, not Miss Merrick. Mom. But it was getting easier. Every day, a little easier. At school, Tyler was in 6th grade now, catching up academically. His teachers knew his story knew to give him time and patience. He joined the chess club and discovered he had a talent for strategic thinking, for planning moves ahead, for survival instincts redirected into competition. He was good at chess, really good. In November, he'd entered a science fair. His project, The Effects of Malnutrition on Childhood Development. Personal research, clinical, educational. His story transformed into data that might help someone else recognize the signs. The centerpiece of his display had been a photograph. The gray hoodie he'd worn for 47 days now framed and hanging in the Ohio Foster Care Advocacy Center in downtown Columbus. The placard beneath it read 47 days. Someone counted. Someone cared. Tyler had won 2nd place. Addie had attended. So had Ghost Chaplain Hawk, Medic Doc, and Scout. 7 people who'd shown up when it mattered, standing in a middle school gymnasium, beaming with pride at a boy who'd survived and was thriving. Now flipping pancakes in February, Tyler thought about that day, about how far he'd come, from 58 pounds to 72, from a basement to a bedroom, from fear to family. The pancakes were ready. He plated them, called Maya and Emma to breakfast. James came downstairs, ruffled Tyler's hair. "Smells good, son." Son, another word that was getting easier. They ate breakfast together. A family, real and imperfect and safe. March brought news. Angel's Watch, the formalized version of Code Fallen Youth, had completed its first full year of operation. Chaplain compiled the statistics, shared them at a press conference with Scout documenting everything. 23 interventions across 4 states. Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Kentucky. 23 children removed from danger. 17 abusers prosecuted. 6 foster care agencies investigated for systematic failures. The program had saved children the system missed. Had shown up when showing up was the only thing that worked. Hawk's financial fraud manual had been distributed to CPS agencies nationwide. 14 new fraud cases identified in 6 months using his guidelines. Doc's curriculum on recognizing child abuse was now required training for all new teachers in Ohio. 47 teacher-reported cases in the first 6 months. Tyler's legacy number. Scout's documentary, 47 Days When a Community Refused to Look Away, had 2.3 million views on YouTube. Comments full of teachers saying they were counting now. Watching, documenting. Medic's medical assessment guide had been adopted by the National EMT Certification Program. 8 EMT reported child abuse cases in 4 months. Chaplin's speaking tour hit 23 conferences in 12 states. Every venue standing room only. The message spreading, pay attention, count the days, see the children. Show up. April brought recognition. Addie received the Ohio Teacher of the Year award. The ceremony was in Columbus. Tyler, Maya, and Emma attended. When Addie's name was called, the children stood and cheered. Her acceptance speech was 3 minutes. 2.5 about Tyler, Maya, and Emma. About 47 days. About refusing to look away. The last 30 seconds, pay attention. Count the days. See the children. That's all it takes to save a life. You don't need 100 motorcycles. You need a notebook and a conscience, and the courage to act when action is hard. Standing ovation. 8 minutes. Tyler watched his teacher, his hero, the woman who'd counted, receive recognition for doing what should have been simple caring about a child. May 15, 2026. 1 year. The Hells Angels Columbus Clubhouse held a community vigil. 300 people attended. Former foster children who'd found healing. Social workers who'd learned to look deeper. Teachers who'd learned to count. Community members who'd learned speaking up mattered. Tyler, Maya, and Emma arrived with James and Rita. 1 year ago, they'd been rescued. Now they were testifying to healing. 103 motorcycles parked in formation. Same as day one. A symbol. A promise renewed. Chaplain stood at a microphone. 1 year ago, Adelaide Whitmore counted to 47. 1 year ago, a 10-year-old boy whispered 7 words. 1 year ago, 103 men showed up because a child needed help. His voice roughened with emotion. My daughter Katie died 27 years ago because nobody showed up. We couldn't save Katie, but we saved Tyler. We saved Maya. We saved Emma, and through Angel's Watch, we saved 23 more. He paused. This is Katie's legacy, Tyler's triumph. Our promise no child suffers alone. Tyler stepped to the microphone. 11 years old, 72 pounds, healthy, strong, alive. I'm Tyler Marlowe Merrick. I'm in 6th grade. I'm on the honor roll. I'm captain of the chess club. I have friends. I have a family, a real family. He looked at James and Rita, mom and dad who chose me. His voice strengthened. 1 year ago, I almost didn't exist. If Ms. Whitmore hadn't counted, I'd still be in that basement, or dead like Zoe and Marcus. But I'm here because people showed up, scary-looking people. He looked at Chaplain Ghost Hawk Medic Doc Scout, people with motorcycles and leather and patches that say danger. They were the safest people I'd ever met. You don't need a motorcycle to save someone. You don't need 100 friends. You just need to pay attention. Count the days. Notice when something's wrong. Care enough to do something about it. He held up his phone, showed the photograph of the framed hoodie. 47 days. Someone counted. Someone cared. That's all it took to save my life. If you're a teacher, count. If you're a neighbor, look. If you're anyone who sees a child struggling, show up, because showing up saves lives. The crowd was silent except for the sound of people crying. Tyler stepped down. Chaplain pulled him into a hug. This massive man with the gray beard and the grief that had driven him to save children for 27 years, holding this boy who was living proof that showing up mattered. Katie would be proud, Chaplain whispered. So damn proud. November 2026. Tyler stood at another science fair, this time with a new project, more advanced, more comprehensive. The long-term effects of childhood malnutrition, a case study and literature review. He'd used himself as the case study, documented his recovery, compared it to medical literature, showed what healing looked like when children got the care they deserved. The project included growth charts, his height and weight over 18 months, the curve showing stunted growth resuming once nutrition improved, psychological assessments, how trauma affected development, how therapy helped, and a section on prevention. Using Hawk's financial red flags, Doc's teacher training, Medic's medical assessment guidelines, turning his survival into education, into tools that might save other children. He won first place. Chaplain Ghost Hawk, Medic Doc, and Scout attended. 6 men in leather vests standing in a high school gymnasium, grinning like proud uncles. After the awards, Tyler pulled Addie aside. Miss Whitmore, I need to ask you something. Of course, what is it? The hoodie, the one in the advocacy center. Can I see it? The next day, Addie drove Tyler to downtown Columbus, to the Ohio Foster Care Advocacy Center. Second floor, the awareness exhibit. There it hung, behind glass, the gray hoodie that had hidden 47 days of suffering. Tyler stood in front of it for a long time, silent. You okay? Addie asked quietly. Yeah, I just needed to see it, to remember that it's over, that I'm not that kid anymore. You'll always be that kid a little bit. That's part of your story, but you're also this kid. Addie gestured at him. Healthy, strong, growing. The one who survived and is helping others survive. Tyler read the placard. 47 days, someone counted, someone cared. Below it, a new edition, Tyler's Law. Passed Ohio State Legislature, March 2026. Requires mandatory financial audits of all foster care placements every 6 months. Requires private interviews with foster children during welfare checks. Increases penalties for foster care fraud to minimum 10 years. Named for Tyler Marlowe Merrick, who survived because someone counted. Tyler's voice was quiet. They named a law after me. You changed the system. That gray hoodie represents every child who needs someone to count. You're making sure future kids don't have to wait 47 days. Tyler touched the glass, not the hoodie itself, just the barrier protecting it. Thank you for counting, Sir Ms. Whitmore. Thank you for surviving, Tyler. They stood together, teacher and student, the woman who'd noticed and the boy who'd endured. Proof that counting mattered. That showing up saved lives. That 47 days of silence could transform into a lifetime of testimony. December 2026. Christmas at the Merrick House. Tyler, Maya, and Emma woke to a tree with presents underneath. Real presents. Toys and clothes and books and things they wanted instead of needed. Emma got a dollhouse. She cried when she opened it. Maya got art supplies, crayons and markers and sketch pads and the freedom to create. Tyler got a chess set, hand-carved, beautiful, and a letter of acceptance to a summer chess camp for advanced players. But the real gift was simpler. It was waking up in a warm house, eating breakfast without asking permission, having parents who said, "I love you," and meant it. It was safety, family, home. James and Rita watched their 3 children open presents, saw joy instead of fear, and felt grateful for a teacher who'd counted and bikers who'd shown up in a system that, despite failing initially, had eventually gotten it right. That evening, Chaplin stopped by, bringing gifts, small things for the kids, but he pulled Tyler aside. "Got something for you." He handed Tyler an envelope. Inside a photograph. Katie Dalton, 8 years old, smiling, taken a week before she died, and a note in Chaplin's handwriting. "Tyler, Katie never got to grow up, never got to be saved. But because we couldn't save her, we saved you. You carry her legacy. Every child you help through your advocacy work, through Tyler's law, through telling your story, that's Katie's life meaning something. Thank you for surviving. Thank you for mattering. Love, Chaplin." Tyler looked at the photo, at this little girl with dark hair and a gap-toothed smile who died because nobody showed up. "I'll make it matter," Tyler said quietly. "I promise." Chaplin pulled him into a hug. "You already do, son. You already do." May 15th, 2027. 2 years. Tyler was 12 now, 5 feet tall, 81 pounds, normal height and weight for his age. The stunted growth was behind him. He was catching up. Maya was 10, speaking at grade level. Asthma controlled, thriving in school. Emma was 8, night terrors mostly gone, able to trust, learning what childhood should feel like. The second annual Angels Watch Vigil was smaller, more intimate, just the Columbus community and the core team. But the impact had grown. 47 interventions in year 2, 47 children removed from danger, 31 abusers prosecuted, 12 foster agencies investigated. Angels Watch had chapters in 8 states now, growing, spreading, the model replicating. Tyler didn't speak this year, didn't need to. His presence was the message. A boy who'd weighed 58 pounds, now healthy and whole. A child who'd been invisible, now seen. A survivor who'd become a voice. That evening, as the vigil ended and people dispersed, Tyler stood with Addie watching the sunset over Columbus. "Ms. Whitmore, do you ever regret it? All the trouble counting caused?" Addie looked at him, at this child who'd become her purpose. "Tyler, counting to 47 was the easiest thing I've ever done. Living with myself, if I hadn't counted, would have been impossible. I'm glad you counted." "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." The sun set, the day ended, but the counting continued. Teachers across Ohio, across the country, were watching their students, documenting, noticing, counting days, seeing children, showing up. Because 47 days had proven that counting saved lives, that showing up mattered, that even when the system failed, communities could succeed. Tyler looked up at the darkening sky, thought about Zoe and Marcus, who hadn't been saved, thought about Katie, who died 29 years ago, thought about every child still waiting for someone to count. And he made a promise. He would keep telling his story, keep advocating, keep making noise until every child had someone who counted their days. Because he'd been counted, he'd been saved, he'd been given a second chance. And he would spend the rest of his life making sure other children got the same. The gray hoodie hung in the advocacy center. A reminder, a warning, a promise. 47 days. Someone counted, someone cared. And that made all the difference.